We are still
Just
expecting
a
John
reminder,
Jackson, am I
today's
right?
conference is being recorded.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, John will be joining us.
Joining conference.
Natalie Euler, Lee Genel.
Joining conference.
Good evening, Natalie.
Joining conference.
Bob Cribbett.
Joining conference.
Steve and Irene Bottrell.
Leaving conference.
Natalie Euler, Lee Genel.
So I heard Bob Cribbett. Who else just joined?
Joining conference.
Ian Crawford.
Ian Crawford. I think it was Steve Bottrell. I heard. Did I
Joining
hear your
conference.
name? The Simpsons.
Joining conference.
Natalie Euler and Lee Genel.
Okay,
Sorry, the
thank
call
you.
dropped.
Yeah, okay, I see that you left and came back, but that's all right.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay. And I heard The Simpsons. Okay, so we're past 8:30, so I will call the meeting to order. We've determined that all five of our counselors, myself included, and George Comrie, are present. We have the following staff on the call: our CAO clerk, Michelle Hendry, our fire chief, Bob Whitman.
Joining conference.
John Jackson.
Oh, great. Thank you, John, for joining us. We have our treasurer, Pat Allen, our deputy clerk, Judith Mines, our planning assistant, Paula Macri, and as you heard just a second ago, John Jackson, who is our planner. And we have a number of members of the public also have joined us on the call. So with that, I will call the meeting to order, and I will ask the councilors if there is any pecuniary interest anyone has to disclose.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. It's Councillor Gore Matthews. I've been advised I should declare a conflict with regards to 6.2 in the planning items. I guess 6.3 as well.
Okay, all right, thank you. We will make a note of that then. Sorry, just and that's with respect to items 6.2 and 6.3, right?
Yeah.
The Greenwood items. Okay, 6.2, 6.3. All right, thank you. That's noted. Anything else? Okay, then we can proceed, I think. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda with two revisions from what has been circulated. The first one is the under 11.2, the addition of a briefing note that I prepared in regards to the outdoor burning bylaw, and I will touch on the highlights of that when we come to introduce that item. So those of you who are participating in the call as members of the public will not have seen that briefing note. It just gave a little background for councillors on where this thing was coming from, but I will cover that off later for you. And the other item to be added is item 11.3, which is a bylaw number 38/2020 to enter into a site plan agreement as a condition of approval of the zoning bylaw amendment for the Greenwood property at Highway 124. So with those two additions, could I get a mover and seconder for the agenda, please?
I'll move it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Seconded by?
I'll second. Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. Is there any objection? All right, hearing none, I will assume that the agenda is approved then. Thank you. Our next motion would be to move into committee of the whole. Could I get a mover and seconder, please? It's for discussion of planning items.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Gorman-Matthews. Seconded by?
I can second that, Councillor Woods.
Councillor Woods. That we move into committee of the whole at 6:37 p.m. Is there any discussion on this motion? Can I assume then that there's no objection? All right. Hearing none, I will declare the motion carried. We're in committee of the whole, and as you know, the purpose of committee of the whole is simply to allow us to have some discussion without the need for a motion to be on the floor. And when we finish committee of the whole, when we finish those discussions, we will reconvene into a regular meeting, and at that time we can deal with matters that arise from the discussion. So the first item is an application from the Simpsons to close and convey shore road allowance in Lot 19, Plan 42M625, in the Township of Mackenzie. And there has been a memo on this prepared by our planner, John Jackson. John, I wonder if you would like to make any introductory comments.
Well, there's a lot of background here, Your Worship. The application at this point is actually fairly straightforward in the sense that we are considering an application where the sideline extensions of the Simpson property is straight line, reflected by Part 8 on the plan, and so it is essentially, at that point, I think, a very supportable application. Okay,
thank you for that comment. And when we come back, we will have a motion to deal with that application. Is there Are there any comment? Is there anyone else who wishes to comment on this particular item or ask any questions? Either councillors or members of the public. Okay. Well, hearing nothing, that is that's a relatively short discussion. As I said, when we come back into the regular session, we will have a motion then to approve that application. The second item, the second and third items, 6.2 and 6.3, both deal with the same property located at 1937A Highway 124, owned by Ted Greenwood, and Ted is on the telephone. At least he was a minute ago. So there are two parts to this discussion. The first one is the rezoning itself, and the second part is a site plan control agreement, and the two things are intended to go together. Is there? And I know that there has been some discussion over the last and since our last meeting about this particular application, and some of the details have been further refined, and there are some changes to what is being proposed tonight from what was discussed at the public meeting that was held a month or so ago. So I wonder if someone would like to summarize that situation for us, either John or our CAO clerk or our planner, and who wants to lead this off?
I don't have a problem, Your Worship, Council. It's John Jackson here, where we've been trying to refine the concerns of all the parties, the municipal council, the neighbors, and Mr. Greenwood, and where there has been a lot of tweaking of the document. Essentially, we have proposed zoning bylaw amendment that defines a certain area of the property that will be used for commercial purposes. The commercial uses have been limited to 6 items, and that this property now will be subject to site plan control, which will implement concerns that will mitigate, hopefully, any objections to impacts by the operation. And so, hand in hand, the two documents we hope will achieve the best kind of development that can occur on the property with the least amount of impact. So we're hopeful as a staff that we can get support for some kind of zoning uses that are quite restricted with the attendant very detailed restrictions about buffering and screening and location of where the uses might occur. So it's been a long road, and we're hoping that the compromises by all the parties will result in ultimately a certain amount of, I suppose, agreement by all the groups and interests in the community for this to go forward and be completed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, John. For the benefit of members of the public and I suppose councillors as well, you will notice that the proposed site plan control agreement is in your package at tab 6.3, and you will also you will find the bylaws themselves that we will come to later in the meeting to make this all happen at 11.1 and 11.2 in your I'm sorry, at 11.1 in your package. So the information is there, and I believe that the diagrams associated with the sort of latest site plan conditions have been circulated. So everyone should have seen them. Is Am I correct in saying that, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Well, perhaps I can open it up to questions and comments. Maybe first by councilors, if there are councilors who have comments or questions, we start with them, and then any members of the public can speak to it if they wish. Any questions by councilors?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor McEwen?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, a couple comments. Councilor Lamb and Paula and I met with Mr. Greenwood to go over some specific issues. Grateful. We covered off some, I guess, very key components of things that position things in I think a better light for all concerned. I guess one big thing that I had coming up to me previous and even to date was potential noise issue, and hopefully that will be controlled, and Mr. Green would work toward keeping the noise level down. He advised me that testing of any high-performance equipment would not be done on his actual site, and that he has places that he takes it to go to for testing purposes. So I hope that will come through with time. The fencing was looked at to try to minimize visual and I guess noise effect as well at that time. So anyway, a couple other items that we talked about were restricting like the permanency of storage and parking. So there are specific locations laid out in the plan as to where you can and can't park items for longer periods especially. So anyway, just a little background on where we've been in the last week or two. Thank you.
And Councilor McEwen, do you feel that the the current site plan agreement and the diagram that goes with it accurately reflect what you discussed? And
yes, Mr. Mayor, in my opinion, it's very well put together in terms of what we discussed as a group on site, and I believe in agreement with Mr. Greenwood. He may comment on that further. There was an additional addition of a short fence area to the south of his property to try to reduce visionary effect. That was a request from council, and we talked to him about that. So there will be a short fence going up on the south side. So that was another additional thing. But I think it reflects quite well what we came up with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from councilors?
Councillor Lamb, I agree with Councillor McEwen of all the remarks that he's made. The only thing I would add is we also, from a month ago, took out the word finished goods, I think, or finished product, which was in the other one. So what can be in the front yard, if you will, in front of the building is for sale product only. So I think that's the other change that's been made in there. Thank you.
And I guess we should note that there is another change from what was in front of everyone at the time of the public meeting a month or so ago, and that is that the width of the commercial zone was originally set at 400 feet, and it has been now reduced to 310 feet. Sorry, 310. I'm being old-fashioned here. 310 meters. So that is. Am I correct about that, Madam Clerk? Is that?
Yes, it's 300 meters perpendicular to 124 and 310 meters parallel to 124, more or less.
Okay.
So originally,
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I'm mentioning that because we're going to come to that as an item when we come back out, and that change will be formalized for the record when we come back. So I wanted to make sure everybody was clear about that. So other comments from the councillors who haven't spoken?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Woods.
Yes. Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm just taking a look at the site plan here. I just want to ask Ted a couple of questions, if that's all right.
Sure.
Ted, the section of fence that would run parallel to the property line at, say, Steve Bottrell's, the 18-meter section there, there's a tree line there. How close would that fence end towards that tree line? What I'm asking, like, would you be able to still get around and cut all the grass on that other side of the property there?
Ted, do you understand his question?
Maybe he's on mute and he doesn't realize it.
I finally figured that out. I'm here.
Thank you. Do you want to try and answer the question?
Can you say that again, Councillor Wood, please, so I can hear that again, please?
The section of fence on the site plan, it says it's 18 meters, and it would be running perpendicular to 124.
Yes.
Okay, that section of fence there at 18 meters, are you still able to get around that? Because there's a tree line in that area, is there not? Like, are you able to get around it to mow the grass or whatever?
I can get a lot more around the end of that, between that and the forest area there, yes.
Okay. And the fence, it's going to be a wooden fence, I'm assuming? That's what was talked about before?
Wooden and steel is what we had talked about.
Yeah, okay.
I think we discussed pressure-treated lumber, I think, for longevity.
Yeah. Okay. Have you purchased any of the building materials for the fence yet?
No, I haven't purchased any of the materials, but I've made inquiries.
Okay.
I know right now that pressure-treated lumber is very hard to get access to right now.
That's actually a comment I was just going to make to you, that I know a lot of places are sold out right now, and demand is very high and supply is extremely low right now.
I believe that's a COVID-19 issue for a lot of things.
Okay. Well, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything, Councillor Gore-Matthews, have any questions?
She declared a pecuniary interest on this.
Oh, thank you. You're right. Okay. Well, we'll pass over that, and I will ask Mr. Greenwood, Ted, if you have any other comments that you want to make about this. This is an opportunity I'll let you go first. Yeah.
Okay. I would like to present one issue towards council tonight. It pertains to this. One of the agreements in the site plan is that am I stepping too far ahead, or can we talk about the requirement on that, or do you need to do something else before I talk about site plan?
No, I think you can go ahead and talk about the site plan agreement. We're having the discussion as one discussion. Go ahead.
Okay. As Councillor Woods brought up about the accessibility of pressure-treated lumber right now, I think there's a time frame that council wished to put on the production of the drawing of the site plan's fencing, and I don't know if the restraints on supply, if I can meet that deadline, is that deadline a line in the sand, is what I'm asking. If I can't get the product.
Well, I'll ask the CAO if she wants to comment on that. I would say normally what we would do is we would take into consideration the realities of procurement situations. Normally, within reason, we expect best efforts to meet the timelines, but we've had other situations where we have granted extensions to people based on their inability to do something that was essentially beyond their control. So I don't see a problem, Madam Clerk. Would you support that opinion, or?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The request would be made in writing, and we would respond in writing, and then it would simply become part of the record. So it's
okay.
Entirely doable.
That's doable by me too. Thank you.
Okay. Are there other comments or questions from members of the public about this matter?
Hi, it's Ian Crawford. I've got a question about. Hello.
Go ahead, Ian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a question. Councillor McEwen raised a great comment about noise, and Councillor Lamb mentioned that testing of high-performance engines, I suppose, are going to happen off-site. I'm wondering, I don't see a specific reference to noise in the site plan agreement, other than perhaps Section 2.I, which just says that the development will be in accordance with the provisions of the municipal zoning bylaw. Is that sufficient to cover the noise restrictions that were discussed with Councillors Lamb and McEwen?
Mr. Jackson or anybody else want to respond to that?
Is John Jackson here, Your Worship?
Leaving
Yes,
conference.
yes. So it's kind of like silo legislation where the noise bylaw is something quite separate from the site plan. So referring it over to the municipality's noise bylaw actually covers it off. So the answer is it is covered off in terms of the municipality's legislation. So we're fine on that particular matter.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Other questions or comments?
Lee General here. Hello.
Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, I have two questions. The first one is regarding the fence, which is on the north end towards Steve's place and behind our place. I noticed that it said the fence is to be 6 feet above parking grade. So closest to the rear large door of the garage, is that the parking grade? And where's the fence going to start for the grade of the fence going up? My point is that at the back corner of that property pin, we're about 2 meters above the parking grade. So the fence going to be 8 meters high? Sorry, 8 feet high? Or where's the fence going to start for the level of the grade is my question. Meaning, what I'm saying is the fence will be too short from our property, which is raised at least 2 meters above the the grade I see right now of the gravel.
Can someone answer that question?
Councillor Lamb, when we were in our meeting, I thought Mr. Greenwood talked about lowering the level of that ground sort of for some reason. So maybe Mr. Greenwood can I don't have the specifics on it, but maybe he could address it if you wouldn't mind, Ted.
Yes, I can address that to Lee. Lee, I said I'd put a 6-foot fence, as the drawing indicates, and I'm going to lower the gravel area down, so the 6-foot fence would actually, from my side, be taller than the 6 foot, because I'm going to lower the grade down. So the fence will be 6 foot on the actual grass area that you're talking about. And then when I lower the level for the parking area, the fence will act as actually higher than what you see. So yes, it would be taller looking from my side, but only 6 foot looking from your side.
Yeah, okay. I was just wondering if the grade was being lowered on the grass.
So theoretically, from my side, it would represent more coverage. Yes.
Okay. Now, my second question was just the noise bylaw came up, and whether it's bringing the equipment off-site to run it wherever it's going to be. Anything that's started in the garage, whether the door's closed or not. Obviously, I can notice that the interior walls are not insulated or finished with chipboard or drywall. So whether the door is closed or not, with metal exterior clad and the roof not being insulated as well, the noise resonates from the garage. So I was just wondering, were you finishing the interior part of the rear of the garage? Kind of stop the noise from resonating from the garage?
Council, can I go ahead and answer that?
Sure.
As of right now, the storage part of it will stay the way it is. And as business grows, then I will probably expand internally. But as of right now, it's the way the building is at this current time.
Okay, I just thought of my third question and final question is the washroom facilities, are they in operation? Because I noticed the septic installation was installed. Is there an operating washroom facility in the building?
I don't understand why that question needs to be answered, but that's under building code, right? So well, what's the purpose of that question?
Well, it's because I don't understand why people are urinating at the rear of the building outside, because I witnessed that today.
I don't know if a customer or someone's done that, but I do have a bathroom facility, so I don't understand that question. But maybe someone did, but I'm not aware of that.
Can I confirm with our building official that a washroom is required in that building? Well, Tyler's not here yet, is he? Madam CAO, I am pretty sure you would know, right?
Yes, absolutely. It will be classed as a commercial building, and there's some requirements under the building code for bathroom facilities.
And I second that as the owner.
Yeah. Yeah, so that shouldn't be an issue, I think.
Okay, thank
Are
you.
there other questions regarding this application? Okay then. Well, I think we can. We've had a good discussion, and now we can go and deal with in the rest of the meeting. We can deal with the remaining the remaining agenda items that involve approval. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to reconvene into regular session, please.
I'll make the motion.
Council McEwen.
Leaving conference.
Okay, I heard.
John Jackson?
I'll second it, Councillor Lamb.
Seconded by Councillor Lamb. And did I hear John Jackson was leaving? Okay, I guess it doesn't matter. All right. So can I assume that everyone is in agreement to resume our regular session? Hearing no objection, the motion is carried, and we're back in regular session as of, looks like 7:06 p.m. Okay, thank you. So next is matters arising from the Committee of the Whole. And the first one has to do with the Simpson Shore Road allowance. I'm looking for a mover and seconder for the following motion. Whereas an application has been submitted by Tyler and Grace Simpson for the closing and acquisition of the Shore Road allowance fronting Lot 19, Land 42M-625, Geographic Township of Mackenzie, now the Municipality of Whitestone. And whereas there are no official plan conflicts, environmental concerns, or planning issues with respect to this application, now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone has no objection to the closure and acquisition of the Shore Road allowance fronting Lot 19, Land 42M-625.
Leaving conference.
Natalie Euler and Lee Geno.
Geographic Township of Mackenzie, now Municipality of Whitestone, and identified as Part 8 on Plan 42R-16378 as applied for by Tyler and Grace Simpson, and subject to, 1, the provision that only the lands above the controlled high water mark be available for stopping up and transfer, and 2, payment of all associated costs and fees as determined by the Municipality of Whitestone.
Leaving conference.
Steve and Irene Bottrell.
And those, of course, are standard conditions for approvals of this sort. Could I get a mover and seconder for that motion, please, that I just read?
I'll move it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb, seconded by...
I can second that, Councillor Woods.
Councillor Woods. Thank you. Is there any discussion on this motion? All right, I will, hearing no discussion, I will call the question, and I'll do it by a roll call vote. Councillor Gorham-Matthews.
Yes.
Councillor Lamb.
Yes.
Councillor McEwen.
Yes.
Councillor Woods.
Yes.
And I'm also in favor, so that motion is carried. Thank you. And that brings us to a follow-on item from 6.2. And once again, I will read the motion that I'm looking for. This motion has to deal with the change in the width of the portion of the Greenwood property that is to be zoned commercial. Whereas the owner of part of Lot 51 Concession B has applied to rezone a portion of these lands into a commercial exception zone for the first 300 meters extended back from Highway number 124, and whereas the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone is proposing a reduction in the extent of the commercial zone from that which was advertised for the public meeting of June 15, 2020,
The Simpsons.
and whereas Section 34, subsection 17 of the Planning Act allows for Council to make changes to a proposed zoning bylaw as follows, and I'll just read to you the extract from that section of the Planning Act. Where a change is made in a proposed bylaw after the holding of the public meeting mentioned in subclause 12A2, the Council shall determine whether any further notice is to be given in respect to the proposed bylaw, and the determination of the Council as to the giving of further notice is final and not subject to review in any court, irrespective of the extent of the change made in the proposed bylaw. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby determine that no further notice shall be required for the reduction of the extent of the commercial zoning of the lands in part of Lot 51, Concession B, and that the width of the property to be rezoned be 310 meters, adjusted from the previously advertised 400 meters, as shown on Schedule 1 on Bylaw 35-2020, is hereby approved. So what we're asking for here is simply approval of the change to reduce the width of the part of that lot that is to be rezoned commercial from 400 meters to 310 meters without holding another public meeting. Could I get a mover and seconder for that, please?
I'll move, Councilor McEwen.
Councilor McEwen moves, seconded by?
I'll second, Councilor Woods.
Councilor Woods. Thank you. Is there any discussion about this motion? Can I call the question then? And I'll pass by Councilor Gorham Matthews because she declared a conflict of interest. Councilor Lamb.
Yes.
Councilor McEwen.
Yes.
Councilor Woods.
Yes.
And I'm in favor as well, so the motion is carried. Thank you for that. And we'll come back one more time when we get to bylaws, but that's it for that particular item at the moment. Now then, that brings us to our consent agenda. We have two items, which are the regular council meeting minutes for the meeting of July 6, 2020, and the unfinished business, which is listed on page 4 of the agenda. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive and or approve the items contained in the consent agenda dated July 20th, 2020. Can I get a mover and seconder, please?
I'll move it, Councilor Lamb.
Councilor Lamb moves, and I think I heard Councilor Gorham Matthews. Am I right?
Yeah, I'll second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion on that one? Okay, are there any objections? If not, that motion is carried. Thank you. And are there any matters arising from the consent agenda, or I guess they would mostly be, I'm assuming that there are no issues with the minutes. Any comments about the about the items on the unfinished business list? Okay, so I will let the record show there are no matters arising from the consent agenda. That brings us to item 10, accounts payable. Could I get a mover and seconder, please, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby approve accounts payable in the amount of $307,369.37 and payroll in the amount of $26,934.22 for payment.
I'll move, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you, Councilor McEwen, seconded by?
I'll second it, Councilor Lamb.
Thank you. Any discussion about the accounts payable? Questions or?
I have one, Mr. Mayor. Just a
Go ahead, please, Councilor Woods.
item number 35065, Brownlee Equipment, Muskoka rental equipment. Do we rent a piece of equipment for a job somewhere that we didn't have, or for $6,497.50?
35065. I will ask the clerk if she. It was something to do with the Canning Road. Was it the surface grinding or something? What would you know, Michelle, what that was about?
Yes, that was the roller. For
the roller.
The roller, the packer for when we did the pulverizing.
Gotcha. I just saw grading, and I thought maybe it was a grader, but I thought we had a grader, so I just thought I'd ask. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions about payables? All right. Can I call the question then? I'll do the roll here. Councillor Gorham Matthews.
Yes.
Councillor Lamb.
Yes.
Councillor McEwen.
Yes.
Councillor Woods.
Yes.
And I'm in favor as well, so that motion is carried unanimously. So that then brings us to bylaws, and we are back to the Greenwood application. So item 11.1 is a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw number 07-2018. That's the zoning bylaw to rezone this portion of the property. So I will read the motion as we have it and see if we can get a mover and seconder. That bylaw 35-2020, being a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw number 07-2018 for part of Lot 51, Concession B, in the geographic township of Hagerman, and identified municipally as number 1937A, Highway 124, from the rural zone to the general commercial C1 zone, limited to the following uses: a retail store, a service shop, a dryland marina, an automobile sales establishment, a snowmobile dealer, a motor vehicle sales and service establishment, a public garage. Be given a first and second reading as attached, and then be it resolved that bylaw 35-2020 be given a third and final reading and enacted as of this date. So is there a mover and seconder for this bylaw to rezone that piece of property?
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Councillor Woods, thank you. Is there a seconder?
I'll second, Councillor. Okay.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Lamb.
Who's Councillor Lamb? All right.
I'll second.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Is there any further discussion about this? I'll say further discussion. I mean, we have talked a bit about it already, but is there anything else that councillors would wish to ask or comment on?
Mr. Mayor, just one question. I know there's a separate bylaw to be entered into for the site plan control agreement. Should that not have been maybe possibly mentioned in this existing bylaw? Or is it totally...
Well, it's... let me just check for a second here. If you look at the bylaw itself, the bylaw 35-2020, if you look at the text of it, you will see there are 4 recitals. That's the things that say whereas, right? And the fourth one says, and whereas Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Whitestone has determined the proposed limited commercial uses with specific zoning restrictions and site plan agreement conditions will be an appropriate use for said property. We did, the question that you asked, Councillor McEwen, I also asked earlier today, and it was referred to Mr. Jackson. In fact, I was hoping he would still be here for this, and maybe he could comment on it. But perhaps the clerk wants to comment. I think the understanding was that it was pretty clear, if you look at the 2 bylaws themselves, that they are intending to go together, and that I think the expectation is that if we are prepared to pass the rezoning, that we are certainly going to want to pass the site plan control bylaw that follows. Do you have any comments, Madam CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, you're absolutely right. The site plan agreement is mentioned within the rezoning bylaw, and the planner, Mr. Jackson, indicated you really need to do your rezoning because the site plan is linked to the fact that you did a rezoning. So the rezoning comes first, and thereafter comes the bylaw for the site plan agreement.
Okay, I can accept that. Thank you.
Thank you, though. Good question. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, I will I will conduct the recorded vote. And once again, I'm assuming that Councillor Gorham Matthews is abstaining from this. Correct?
Yes, I would assume so. It would apply to this as well.
All right. So Councillor Joe Lamb.
Yes.
Councillor McEwen.
Yes.
Councillor Wood.
Yes.
And I am in favor. So that motion is carried. So that is the bylaw to, whoops. Now we come to bylaw 38-2020, and I know that we skipped a number, but don't be patient. We will please be patient. We will come to it in a sec. This is bylaw. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead in the agenda, but you know what? Let's stick with this item and finish it. So I'm going to go to 11.3 with your indulgence. This is the bylaw to enter into the site plan agreement. So can I get a mover and seconder for this? That bylaw 38-2020 being a bylaw to enter into a site plan agreement as a condition of approval of a zoning bylaw amendment shall be read a first and second time this 20th day of July 2020 and further read a third time passed and properly signed and sealed this 20th day of July 2020.
Mr. Mayor, sorry to interrupt, CEO Hendry. The councillors will note that what the mayor read is different than what was sent to them earlier today, and that's because at the last minute we needed to make some changes to that resolution that allows us to enter into the bylaw, and actually it was important that we simplify it. So if you were looking for a couple of more recitals, they don't exist anymore. The resolution has changed, so I just wanted to explain that if you're following the resolution list. That was based on
okay, so Madam,
near the end of the meeting there.
Yeah, but did I read the right thing or the wrong thing?
You read the correct one, and what the other councillors will be looking at is the wrong one. But you read the right one, so you're correct.
Okay, so the copy of bylaw 30. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just looking at the bylaw itself here. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It's I think we've got the right paper here. Okay, well, thank you for clarifying that because I got rid of the earlier motion papers that I had when they were being revised. So, all right. Can I get a mover and seconder for what I just read, please?
I'll move, Councillor McEwen.
Councillor McEwen.
I'll second, Councillor Woods.
Councillor Woods. So this is to approve the site plan agreement. All right then. Are there any comments or questions? All right, then I will call the roll for this one, and once again, I'll mark Councillor Gorham-Matthews as abstaining. Councillor Lamb.
Yes.
Councillor McEwen.
Yes.
Councillor Woods.
Yes.
And I am also approved. So that motion is, I am also in agreement. So that motion is approved. And let me just pause to say thank you to everybody who has worked on this file. It's been a fair amount of effort, but I'm hopeful that we have a solution that will work for everybody, and we can. Mr. Greenwood can get on with what he's planning to do. So thank you for your efforts, those of you who have put time and effort into all of this. Then I will go back just one item in the agenda to deal with the open air burning bylaw. And you'll recall that this is an item that was on the list of action items that we had that we were working on since all last year. And our fire chief, Bob Whitman, and I have spent a fair bit of time going through this, and it has gone through a number of iterations and so on, but we think we have something that represents an improvement from where we're at, and I guess I would just like to, for the benefit of, just highlight a couple of things that you will find in the briefing note that councillors have certainly the councilors would have seen it. You may not have had time to read it because it came out just today, but essentially what we're doing is we're updating a bylaw, the so-called outdoor burning bylaw, which was last passed in, it's 07-2003, so it was passed in the summer of 2003. And there are a couple of reasons for doing that. One was to try to get some, to make it a little bit simpler and clearer and perhaps easier to understand. There were not many substantive changes, but the ones that are highlighted in the note I sent you, we're suggesting with this bylaw that permits should be required for all outdoor fires during the fire season, with the exception of fires for cooking in your barbecue. Okay, and of course those are have never been the subject of permits. There's another situation that's similar to that, which is those portable stoves that are made by Coleman and other people that campers sometimes use. They are appliances that burn gas or liquid, and they have a control valve on them that you can shut the flame off and it goes out right away. And so those are considered to be safe. But anyway, so permits are required for all outdoor fires except for those when those particular appliances are being used. And if you go and look at the bylaw itself, which is number 37, 2020, you will see at section 2 that it says a permit is required for all outdoor burning. And we realized relatively late this afternoon that the exception for fires, for cooking fires using those appliances, was omitted from the bylaw. So the one that you have in front of you is not 100% right, but that has been changed as of a couple hours ago in the version that we have. Second substantive change is...
Mr. Mayor, might I just ask, charcoal barbecues, maybe this is a long document, you don't need a fire permit for a charcoal barbecue, do you? You don't, well, sorry. You do if you're not using it in conjunction with like if you just have it outside your house, I guess you don't. But you do if you're taking it with you, and you can't take it with you during without like if you're taking it camping. Not that people would probably want to do that, but you would need a permit, and you couldn't use it in a fire ban. Yeah, no, okay.
So does that answer your question? We're not intending to interfere with people who have, a barbecue that they use outside their residence. But if it's the charcoal is problematic when you're moving around in the bush, because you got to somehow get rid of the ashes and coals, and unless you can dump them in the water or something like that, there's a possibility that they'll be left behind and still burning. So under normal circumstances, when in the fire season a permit is required for somebody to use it, and in a fire ban you can't use them at all if you look at the fine print about those things in the bylaw.
And a smoker goes in the same category as the charcoal barbecue thing.
Yeah, the smoker is again one of those appliances that you can use to you can use to cook even in a fire ban, providing it complies with the conditions. If you Probably the best way to explain it to you is that if you look at the bylaw, it is a big bylaw, and it's structured in a way that it starts off talking about types of fires that people have, like campfires, brush burning, using an incinerator, those kinds of fires. We don't have a thing defined as a bonfire, but some people do those. They're just kind of general outdoor burning, and those, there are conditions on those fires and where they can be set and so on, but they all require a permit because they're specific types of a fire which could be large and could get out of control. And then you have the next few sections, starting about Section 9 of the bylaw, deal with appliances, really. So it talks about, it talks about an incinerator, for example, and then it talks about the gas stoves, the charcoal stoves, wood-burning stoves and ovens, which some people will use outside, and smokers. And for each of those, there is a set of conditions that there are certain rules that apply to all of them, and then there's certain specific conditions about them. But if you have those as a permanent installation, you can cook on them even in a fire ban. You can't take if you had a regular wood stove and you decided to take it with you on a camping trip, and I don't know who would want to do that, but you would need a permit for it, and you wouldn't be able to use it in a fire ban. But if it's adjacent to your house and it's not located in places where you need where you're in danger of coming in contact with flammable materials or combustible materials, then it's okay. So that's the intent of it. And I think your question, Councillor Lamb, points out something that we would obviously have to do is when we pass this bylaw, we would have to have a sort of an education campaign and maybe have some material that can be that people would download with permits or people would see on the website and so on, that makes it a little easier to figure out what you can and can't do, what you need a permit for and what you don't. But the gist of the one change is that it used to be that fires for cooking and warmth did not require a permit. And you can see the reasons that we believe that it's a good idea to ask people to get a permit for those, so that we don't have people get various ideas about what constitutes a fire for cooking and warmth, and some of them are quite dangerous. Again, the circumstances, as I mentioned, have actually been expanded under when cooking is permitted during a fire ban, and there are or in a restricted fire zone, and there are actually 4 types of devices that you can use for that. You have to use them in conformance. There was a very minor change to the definition of nighttime, you'll see, and then there are a series of changes to the set fines, and the set fines belong to the Provincial Offences Act, and we have to get them approved by a judge. We can't just set them at whatever we want. The standards across the province for the fines are all over the place, but we're suggesting a fixed fine for the same fixed fine, essentially, which is $500 for all of those different things. And you can see that there's a little discussion there about how fines work, which might be unfamiliar to some of you, and that's why I put it there. It was
leaving conference.
Ted Greenwood.
It was something that I didn't understand. The final comment that I want to make, because I don't want to spend too long on this, but the final comment I want to make is that when we started this exercise of looking at this, we had a view to going to electronic permitting, and the situation is simply this. And you heard about this earlier in the spring. At just at the start of the COVID-19 situation, where our permit issuers, which are places like the Duck Rock and so on, were absolutely swamped with people arriving wanting fire permits, and they issued a huge number of them in a very short period of time, and it was quite a burden to them, because the only way you can get it is it's a paper permit. You have to go to one of those issuers, or you have to go to our own fire department when the municipal office is open. And so there are many municipalities have electronic permits, and there are companies that offer this as a service, and it's fairly economical. And plus, we could probably do it straight off our own new website once we get it installed. But the intent was that we would have give people the ability to essentially go online and take out at least a regular permit, not a daytime burning permit or one where the fire chief may have to go and inspect what it is you want to do, but the regular permits, you could apply for them anytime you want online, and if we decide to charge a fee for it, pay the fee and get the permit, and you could get it down. You can either just have it come down to your phone so that you could show it on your phone if somebody came and said, "Where's your permit for this fire?" Or you could print it out if you wanted, because it's a PDF. You could print out a copy of it and stick it up if you wanted. So we did look a fair bit at the business of electronic permitting, and you'll see some suggestions there. There is a suggestion that we have a nominal charge for a permit. I looked at what several other municipalities are doing. Some charge nothing. Some charge, the ones that charge typically charge like $20 or something. But it kind of depends. We do about 1,100 permits in a typical year. So we don't have to make a decision about about the permitting or the charging. If you're amenable, we can have a little bit of discussion on it if you'd like. But I think the crux of what we're doing is we're trying to get through the first two readings of this bylaw, because once we do that, here's the process we follow. Once we do that, we have to forward the bylaw. It's kind of like the process we followed with the cemetery bylaw recently, if you remember. We have to forward the bylaw to the Ministry of the Attorney General, and they send it out to a judge of the Ontario Superior Court, or the judge approves the fines, and that's how the fines get attached as a schedule to the Provincial Offences Act, and that enables us to do. And those fines are the set fines if our fire chief issues you a ticket, or some fire official issues you a ticket for, let's say, failing to put your fire out, then it's like a traffic ticket, of course. You can plead guilty and pay the fine, and that's the fine that you're going to pay. Whatever we agree it is. And by the way, we can certainly have a discussion about whether you like or don't like that number, $500. But of course, you can also say, no, I want to go to court and go in front of a magistrate, and I want to either plead not guilty and try to get out of it, or I want to plead guilty with an explanation and try to get the fine reduced. And the magistrate, of course, has the power to do that, can say, well, I'm going to alter the set fine to whatever. So that's I guess the thing that you would notice is that we're essentially going from I believe the latest fines that the MNR uses for similar offenses when they charge people is in the neighborhood of they're $200. Some municipalities charge $200-300 for some things, and if you burn in a fire ban or you burn without a permit when a permit's required, then they charge you $500. Or they have different fines for different things. It's hard to argue for the number of different offenses there are. It's hard to argue what the fine should be, but the philosophy behind it is simply this: that if we get a fire, a serious forest fire going, it can do a lot of damage. And you saw what happened last year with Parry Sound 33, and even with that fire that persisted for several days the other side of the tracks near Ardbeg. If that fire, if Parry Sound 33 had crossed Highway 69, we probably would have ended up evacuating Ardbeg. And if the MNR, who were water bombing it for several days, had not been able to get the one out of Ardbeg, same sort of thing. And of course, when fire comes like that, people's houses and cottages and so on, it's very, very hard to protect them. So we're also in a time when the Ontario government and municipalities have reduced resources to fight fires because of COVID-19, and on top of that, we've got some of this instability in our climate, which is resulting in hot days and so on. So I guess the philosophy behind that fine number, if you're looking for one, is that is an attempt to try to get people to take forest fire prevention more seriously, perhaps, than we have in the past, just to make sure that we don't end up with a disaster here as a result of a large forest fire. So, but anyway, everyone can have their own opinion as to fines. They're not really intended to be punitive. They're intended to be high enough to act as an incentive for people to think carefully about what they're doing, and if they do make a mistake and get charged, or no, make a mistake, or they do forget and do something they shouldn't, if they have a fine that is large enough that the next time around they'll think twice about it and won't do it again. So anyway, that's really all I wanted to say about this. I guess what we should do, since we're in the regular session, is to get this on the agenda is see if we can get a mover and seconder for the motion attached to 11.2, which is that bylaw 37/2020, being an open-air burning bylaw, and repealing bylaw 07/2003, that's part of it. That's part of the bylaw. Is hereby received for information, and that bylaw 37-2020 is hereby given a first and second reading. So it doesn't come into force, but you're saying, yeah, we're okay with it as a sort of a starting point, and we'll see what we get back from the Attorney General. So can I get a mover and seconder for that, please? And we can have some discussion.
I'll make the motion.
Councillor Gorman Matthews, thank you. Seconded by?
I'll second that, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. Open for discussion.
Mr. Mayor, could I have a couple comments, please?
You may, absolutely.
I think we're taking a monster leap here from 2003. I grew up through an era of camping in parks, canoe trips, out trips. Fire safety has always been very top and front and center and I'd say more so through the MNR and some of the older days than it is today. Granted, there isn't the force out there to enforce these things like they used to be, but to go from a permit for any kind of fire outside of a fire ban for a campfire, I can see people coming in and going to Black Lake or into the little picnic sites, campsites, campgrounds, and traditionally they would have more than just a barbecue, gas barbecue. And I think if you went around today, you'd certainly see that. I was in Algonquin Park just last summer, and the smoke was wafting all over the place from the little campfires that were being used. I think we're cutting out a cultural thing in people's lives almost. I know fire and potential serious big fire danger, it's always there. I don't see personally where we've had any of that kind of overly abusive stuff that has caused big fires in Whitestone to my knowledge. The one at Ardbeg was railway driven, from what I understand. So I'm not sure we're going the right direction with this to cause people to have a permit for everything they do except short of a gas barbecue out in their cottage locations, their picnic areas, campsites. They come up on Friday night and, oh, geez, I didn't get my permit. Okay, I guess they go buy a barbecue and or I guess a permit's not going to help them because they won't be able to have a fire. They won't be able to have anything other than those couple of very specific items to use for cooking on. So I don't know. I think we're going too far too fast with this thing in terms of a permit. The permit thing is kind of over the top, and the amount of the permit, 500. I think we're a little bit high on that also. So I have some issues with this.
Well, just if I may, the $500 are fines for violations. They're not the cost of the permit.
I realize that. The
permits right now are free, and the council could decide in their wisdom if they want to continue to make them free. I don't think that's the issue.
I read your comments. I have a list.
But what I would like though is if our fire chief could comment on the problems that he's seeing that are sort of leading us in this direction. Bob, would you mind?
Sure. So there's really not much difference between this bylaw and the one we have right now. You still need a permit. The only difference between that, there really isn't a huge lot of difference if you spent that. The problem is when we go out to enforce these, we had a 12-hectare bushfire for a guy that was burning in the middle of a fire ban in the wrong time of the day, and it was a $20,000 fire. You don't hear about most of the fires we go to because we don't tell you, because it's, why bother? We go back to Black Lake. It takes me 2.5 to 3 hours to do a call back there, and we're only charging people nothing because now if you don't want them to have a permit, how do we know who started the fire? We don't. So if they start a fire back there and burn the bush down, who are we going to charge? Nobody. The taxpayers of the municipality of Whitestone are going to be paying to put out that fire. The fire along the railway tracks was caused by CN. That was a $95,000 fire. We were able to recover that cost because we could prove CN started that fire. If you don't want people to have permits and you want people to do whatever they want, hey, I'm good with that. But you better have the money to put out those fires because it's going to get expensive. And if we can't prove who started that fire, we're not going to be able to collect that money back for those costs. So I'm all for having no permits and do whatever you want in Whitestone. But you got to have the money to put those fires out. So,
Mr. Mayor, I think that's a little overstated to do whatever let people do whatever they want. There's a heck of a difference between people burning brush, having fires during a fire ban, and just straight permit for every fire use activity.
So we're telling people that they need a fire to have a bonfire. We're telling people that a permit. We're telling people that they need to have a fire or a permit to burn brush in the evening, which you have to have now, and we're telling people that you have to have a permit to burn in the daytime, which we have right now, and we're telling people that you need a permit to have an incinerator, which we have right now. So what's the difference?
You tell me what the difference is. I think the big difference is the permit cooking.
Okay, but here's the Councilor McEwen. Here's the like you actually mentioned the I think the situation that is triggering a lot of this stuff that is the kind of stuff that is going on at places like Black Lake, for example. The folks that you referred to earlier who are doing canoe trips, they're going down the Meg, they're taking the Magneto One canoe route, and doing things like that. You're absolutely right. Those people are typically responsible. And what do? They're traveling light. They got to carry a tent, a canoe, a bunch of stuff. They take a little Coleman stove that runs on, on kerosene or bottled fuel of some kind or other, and they cook on it. They don't set big fires because they're not traveling in large groups, so they're not having giant campfires and stuff like that. But what happens is when you get a bunch of people, and those people would not require permits for what they're doing, and I don't see that the permit, by the way, people plan these trips. The advantage to a permit is that you would know essentially where they are and how many people you have out there that are doing that sort of thing. So, but anyway, we're not proposing to make them get a permit, but we're proposing to make an offense for people who say, I want to have a bonfire or a campfire. I want to have a big fire, and I want to have 30 people or so on sitting around the fire telling stories and drinking beer and roasting marshmallows and whatever. Those are the fires that get out of control. And you must have heard that there have been numerous fires at Black Lake. People have set the outhouses on fire. They've set the picnic tables on fire. They've burnt. There's our fire chief has been back there when there have been numerous people with their own separate little fires, and people are not paying attention to them. They leave them burning. They do all kinds of things. And I think if you say to people you must have a permit to do that kind of activity, they're not cooking on them. They don't need a fire like that to cook on. The little cook stove is not going to burn anybody's place down, but some of this other behavior is going to, and you think about it, if it gets to somebody's cottage or it gets to somebody's residence in the municipality, oh yeah, you're going to get some insurance and everything from it, but are you going to want to build on the site that's been burnt out, And
we're really going off into.
Mr. I don't need a real long lecture on all this. What I'm referring to is campfire cooking. The ability to cook on a campfire. Now you need a permit in or outside of a fire ban. It doesn't matter.
But Mr. McEwen, if you look at the permit, it says when you have a campfire for cooking, it has to be extinguished when you're done. If you tell people that they don't need a permit to have a camp to cook, they can cook all day and have a fire all day long. They just got to throw a pot on the stove with an onion in it and tell you I'm cooking soup. They can burn all day long.
So we're assuming everyone will do that? We're telling everyone...
No, we're not assuming that. We're not assuming anything. Just like we're not assuming people take 50 loads of garbage to the dump at one time. We're telling you that if you need a permit at 3 o'clock in the morning, once this bylaw is passed, you can go online and get one. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, if you're on your way to the cottage, you just got to make a phone call. Dial up on your phone and you can get a permit. You're ready to go. There's no excuse. None. But the biggest thing for having a permit to do anything is so people read the rules and the regulations. Do they read them? No. Do you know how many people have charged this year and asked, well, you should have read the back of the permit. Oh, I didn't even know there was anything on the back of the permit. They don't read it. They just check it off. But that helps us when we go to court because you had the opportunity to read the bylaw. We made this easier, I think. George put in a lot of time and a lot of work on this, and I think it's pretty good. So
anyway, I hear that maybe people don't want to go there. Are there other comments that councillors would like to make about this?
Yeah, Councillor Lamb. I think one of the issues when it comes to this, particularly when you're doing this over the phone and with agendas that I have to print out. I happen to be not at the cottage today. I'm down in Burlington. It's very difficult to follow all this. And it's not a criticism, I guess. Excuse me. Maybe it is, but it would be really nice to know what exactly is new. Like, what exactly is new? If I go out right now with one of those portable barbecues, which I've done in the past, and we go down the Long Arm Bay, and there's right near Dead Man's Drop, there's a area on the right where people cook. There's racks up in the tree, for God's sakes. But what we do is we go over there and we have, we'll turn the little gas on the Coleman stove, and we'll cook some hot dogs up, right? And then we turn it off, and we make sure it's not hot, and we put it back in the boat, and we come home. Question, right now, do I need I realize I can't do, well, let me ask this. Do I need a permit right now to do what I just described?
I'll let the fire chief answer. Does he need a permit? I don't think so, but does he?
Sorry. To do what you just described right now in the old bylaw, you do not.
What about in the new bylaw?
You do not.
Okay, so that's what I'm getting at. That's why I was asking the barbecue and the charcoal because it's either, you're trying to read the whole thing and grasp the whole thing. You guys have worked on it, so you know, and I think Councillor McEwen and I are sort of saying, well, hold on here. What's new? What is new for people, right? And I don't know. And I think if we're trying to encourage people to get fire permits, and so we know where they are and we can track them, why in God's name, or what do you really think is going to happen if you charge them $20 as opposed to free? They flock in to get their fire permits now, like they did when COVID-19 allowed them, and that's why the Duck Rock was run on. Just charge $20, and you're going to find the same thing that happens with building permits and everything else in here. I think you're going to find people are going to avoid the fire permit. They're going to still act safely in wherever their fire is. But I guess they'll just say, "Oh, I didn't know I needed a permit or something," right? Yeah, but there's some things that just don't connect with me on this thing. In terms of the fines, I mean, I don't know. I want to be competitive with our fines, right? If you tell me that all area fines are $500, then I guess ours should be $500. But if the rest are what do we try? You say it's not punitive. It's pretty punitive at $500, and so I'm just not comfortable with it. And I just, am I not going to vote against the $500 fine? I guess not. It's not the world doesn't end there, but I'm really, really confused as to some of the new parts. So can someone take not a half hour, but just take 3 minutes and tell me what exactly is new and what exactly point by point is new in this bylaw that wasn't or isn't in the 203 bylaw, or what was taken out of the 203 bylaw. Just a really quick, we did this, we did that, we did that, and we did that. Because I'm getting lost with all this talk.
Well, I'm sorry. I tried to do that at the outset. There are in my list of things, and if you can't compare the sections. I mean, I could give you I can't give you any sort of a meaningful like a side-by-side comparison of the two bylaws because the sections are renumbered, and they're renumbered to organize it better so that it can be comprehended and to sort of put things in a more logical sequence. So, unfortunately, you can't do a line-by-line comparison.
I'm not asking.
There are only 4 things that are different. that are
Right.
substantive.
That's what I want to know.
Number
That's
one,
what I want
permits are required for things where you did not require a permit. You did not require a permit for cooking or warmth, and now you do. And under the old bylaw, in this proposed one, you would, except for those things that we've already talked about. I mean, there are some exceptions there, but more people, the people who want to have a quote-unquote campfire, who would have in the past have argued this is a fire for cooking and warmth, they would not. They would need a permit for that now, or in the future, whereas they wouldn't now. There are actually more.
Hold on. If it's on my property, do I need a permit? Are you talking about when you're out in the bush? Or are you talking about when you're sitting on your own private land cooking a barbecue or for cooking, right? Like, what's new? What am I going to require a permit for? And that's new. And where? Is it on my property, off my property, or both?
I might be able to explain this a little better, maybe, if I may, Mr.
Go ahead,
Mayor.
Bob.
Sorry?
Yeah.
So if you look at number 11, number 12,
Yeah.
sorry?
So go ahead.
Number 11, number 12, number 13, and number 14 are new. Okay, so I don't know why everybody's getting mixed up about having a permit to have a propane barbecue, because if you read section number 2 where it says fire permits are required, if you read the first paragraph, any person setting an open-air fire in the municipality of Whitestone during the fire season, except for cooking using a portable liquid or gas stove, shall. So if you're using a propane barbecue or a Coleman stove, you don't require a permit.
I think we understand that, Bob.
So the only things that are new is, like I say, 11, 12, 13, and then 14 are the only things that are new in the bylaw. Everything else is just explained a little bit better. The definitions are explained better than they were in the old bylaw. The burning for a campfire is the same. The burning of the brush is the same. Burning grass and leaves is the same as the old one. The daytime fire permit is exactly the same as the old one. Oh, sorry, it's 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 are new. Sorry, my mistake. Those are the only things that we added. And it was just to more or less clarify some of the problems we had in the past. So those are really the only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that are new. Everything else... Sorry?
Isn't number 5 where you're talking about cooking and warmth, where you now need a permit under all circumstances? That wasn't in there before, was it? You didn't need a fire permit.
Oh, yes, you're correct. Yep, that's right. And the reason we put that in there is because the same thing. When we go back to Black Lake when it's 32 degrees outside, somebody has a fire and they say, well, I'm cold, so I need a fire.
Okay, well, my question is similar to Councillor Lamb.
Right.
I need a permit, though, if I want to have a little cooking fire on my own property, whether it's a lakeshore property or regardless of where it is. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Whether it's a fire ban or not.
Correct.
So that's been my real point all along.
So you think we should allow people to cook and have fires without permits? Is that what you're asking? Just so I know, so I can understand this. So you think that in the municipality of Whitestone, we should take out that if you want to... So in the old permit, or the permit that we have today, if you read the back of the permit, it says a fire permit is not required to start an outdoor fire during the fire season. Oh, shit. Sorry. Sorry, I lost it here. Sorry. A fire permit is not required before starting an outdoor fire during the fire season except for cooking and warmth. So you want us to have a permit for everything except cooking and warmth. Is that what you're asking?
Well, no, I'm just asking you, and as Councillor
No,
Lambert,
I'm asking you.
Don't put words in my mouth, Bob.
I'm asking you if that's what you're asking.
We've asked you to qualify if you need for cooking at any time of the year, is what you're saying, other than off the fire season. You need
And
a
I
permit.
said yes. And I'm asking you if what you're saying is you would rather have no permit. Is that what you're asking me? If you're asking me to say, should we take out and then put it the old way that you don't require a permit for cooking and warmth, is that what you're asking? Like right now in the new bylaw, you're going to require that. So my question to you is, what would you want us to take out? I got the floor here, I think. Do you want me to take out, or would you like us to take out the cooking and warmth? What's that?
Council, don't ask me.
No, I'm asking you. You asked the question.
Okay, come on.
Would you like me to take out? Would you like me to take out that you don't require a permit for cooking and warmth? That's a simple question. Like, how are we going to move on if you don't ask it?
Ask Councillor Lamb or Councillor Woods.
I'm asking you.
Well, okay.
What do you need? They're okay to make a decision?
Folks, hang on, please. Look, what we're trying to do, we had a first and second reading so that we can have a discussion and find out what it is that people want to do. So, I mean, all that Bob and I are trying to determine is if, assuming that you understand what it is that we're proposing to change, are you in favor of changing it or not changing it? I mean, we can have a reworded bylaw that doesn't change anything. I mean, it's still an easier, cleaner bylaw than the one that we had previously, but it's the incentive was to try to get something that's I mean, let's be candid. It was to attempt to get something that's a little tighter, and if people don't want to make it tighter, then it is council's decision. I guess that's what we're trying to find out. Is what people's reaction. I don't know. Are there other comments that people have? I don't want to. We've got other things to do in the meeting, so we don't want to drag it on indefinitely. But right now, I wouldn't know. For example, if you said bring it back with something else, I wouldn't know what to bring back to you. I guess is
Mr. Mayor, if I could ask one question here, is this compatible with other municipalities and with Parks Canada and such?
Well, Parks Canada has no. I mean, I don't know what fire regulations they have. We don't. They operate under their own system of laws. The different municipalities are all over the map, and just to make matters more complicated, the M&R, which there is a provincial act called the Forest Fires Prevention Act, and the regulation, and they also have offenses and fines for various things, and some of them overlap these ones, and some of them are different, but they are literally all over the map. I would say, it's like nobody says if you want to have a barbecue at your house, using a barbecue appliance, using one of those things that you buy at Canadian Tire, it runs on propane or natural gas, right, or even charcoal or whatever. Nobody makes you get a permit for those because people cook on them every day in the summer. But if you're going to set fire to some brush or some grass or leaves, or if you're going to do something unusual, burn something unusual, you absolutely have to get a permit. If you're going to be traveling around in Crown land or like on Crown land or in wooded areas of a municipality or in campgrounds that are operated by municipalities, there are a whole bunch of there are a whole bunch of restrictions. So, but there is no consistency. I mean, if you did a search on the internet, you'll find you can look at 20 different municipalities. Every single one of them is completely different. A lot of them are moving to electronic permitting. Some charge, some don't charge. Some charge $20, some charge, it's, and some also have different fine structures. They don't, like we under the current system we have today, for example, if the fire chief has to go out with a fire truck because somebody reports a fire and you've got a fire out of control and he puts it out, he's entitled to bill you, the municipality is entitled to bill you and charge your property, to send you a bill for the cost of their time and their vehicle and everything. And if you don't pay it, it can be added to your property taxes. That exists today in the municipality of Whitestone. Okay, so some municipalities don't do that. They say, well, we're going to charge more for permits, but if we have to go and attend to a fire, we're not going to charge anybody for that. So, it's not consistent, I'm afraid.
Mr. Mayor, maybe I should have been more specific. Like when it comes to cooking, like say you want to have a wiener roast with your grandkids or some such thing. Oops, I need a permit. That's what it's come down to. Is that appropriate? I guess that's all I'm asking.
Well, if you want to do it, if you want to do it in your backyard on the ground, and you're going to have just a wood fire sitting on the ground, yeah, you need a permit for it. But if you're doing it inside a hibachi or something like that, you don't. That's because the likelihood is that if you leave and you think you put the fire out, but you didn't because it's on the ground and there's stuff down under the ground burning, and 2 days later it bursts back into flame. And you've probably seen that happen. I have.
Well, you have to put it out responsibly for sure. But
so, Mr. Mayor and Council, so we just need to know, I guess, what you want us to take out of here, what you don't want, so we can get this done, or what you don't like, so we can do it up, so we can move on. So, is Council's wishes to take out that you don't need a permit for cooking and warmth? We can take it out, but we need to know.
What about the councilors who haven't spoken? Are there others? Do others have opinion on this subject?
Yes, may I speak, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So I have no issue with the things that have been added to the bylaw. I like that the cooking has been added to the permit situation. I just see it as another type of education piece. Even if like 20% of the people read the fine print, it's 20% more people that know a little bit more about putting out a fire and just being good stewards out in the forest. So I have no issue with the things that have been added. I just want to add as well that I think that people won't balk at paying the $5 for the permit. Given that they have the option of buying it online, I think people would pay for the convenience of having that opportunity to get their permit at any time of their convenience. And especially in this day and age of electronics, if you can just download it right onto your phone and save it there and not even have to print it out, I think that's worth something in itself. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Councilor Woods, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I could say a couple of things. The fire for warmth and cooking. Like I've always had a fire pit at my house, at all the properties that I've had up here, and I've always got a permit for, a small little fire where me and my kids would be roasting hot dogs, and it would be only a little fire for that, and then it would be put out afterwards. I just assumed that you needed a permit for that no matter what. And if I was going to go out, I actually talked to Bob about this. If I was going to go out to one of my bush properties, I would let him know that I was going out there, and I'd be having a fire out there if I was camping or something. I don't see any massive issue with asking people to have it, even if you haven't fire pit, and you have to have a burn permit for it. I don't see a big issue with that. As far as the fines go, $500, sure, you might be able to say it's high, but at the same time, you look at some places when you start a fire, and it might be low. The permit fee, $5, $20, I think, is a little bit high. If it was something like $5, and the people could do it all online, I don't see anybody complaining about that. I wouldn't complain about it.
Okay, well, look, I think we've spent probably as much time as we should on this tonight. Are there any other?
Well, I probably haven't. I read it. I probably don't understand it as well as I should. So I don't know what to do with this thing. When I read 13, and I guess maybe it's been in the bylaw all along. No person shall start or tend an outdoor fire during the fire season for the purpose of cooking using a smoker. I don't think there's very many people that would have, like if they had a smoker on their property, be it waterfront or off the water, would know that if they had a smoker, they would need a fire permit. I just don't think they know that. So maybe it is education.
So just so I can interrupt, Councillor Lamb, that is new.
Yeah.
That wasn't in the bylaw before.
No, I realize.
Oh, okay.
I think people will see that as over the top. They'll see. I think they understand fire bans and what they can do and what they can't do. And I'm not talking about fires out in the bush and fires anyway. Everyone knows they got to get a fire permit, but I don't think they know that henceforth, if you have a smoker, you're going to need, I think it's in here, charcoal. I thought that's why I asked it. I thought in here there was something about charcoal. Here, number 11. That's new too, right?
Charcoal has its own. Well, it did before have its own section.
But it's new, isn't it? Didn't Bob say that was new?
That was new. That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I own a cottage, I never have a fire outside. I don't have a fire pit. I don't use that. But I've got a hibachi barbecue, right, that uses charcoal. I've got to go in and get a fire permit. And I'm confused because I thought earlier I was said, you don't need to go in and get a fire permit for that. But clearly, unless I'm misreading number 11, if I have just a hibachi, right now I don't need a fire permit, and I'm going to require one, right? And that's, I think, the sort of stuff that Councillor McEwen's getting at. I'm not talking about open fires in the bush and things like that. I think if they need a permit, they should get a permit. But I think we're going a little too far when it comes to some of this other stuff. That's all my comments. The rest of the comments, still apply. I think, what's the current fee structure, by the way? We're going to 500. What is it now in Whitestone?
Ours are 150 because we didn't update it when the province updated when everybody else updated theirs from 150 to 200 in 2011.
Most of our sorry, Mr. Mayor, most of our fines are $155 plus $35 surcharge.
Okay. And Bob.
There is a surcharge. Oh.
And if I went to McKellar and did the same thing, it would be in the area of $500, or it would be in the area of $200.
No, we're asking for $500 because when
I know what you're asking for.
Yeah.
My question of you, just hold on. My question of you is, what do other communities like McKellar, Magnetamon, these places, for the same offense, what do they charge? Do they charge $200 or $500 or $1,000 for that matter?
Yeah.
And the answer, well, it's all over the place. I guess is an answer, but all over the place from what to what? So I just.
I'll tell you what. Here's let's do this so that we can move on. We will go back and get you a little bit more data on what other people are doing, and we will look at this so that you can see so you at least have a little bit more information, and we'll bring it back and have a discussion when there's more information and when you've had a chance to look at it a little more carefully, and we'll go through again and take a look at some of these provisions and see if there's a way that we can make it easier for people to understand.
Mr. Mayor, I think that's the point. We get thrown a package on a Friday for a Monday meeting, right? And with no, what's the old one, what's the new one, what's changing, what isn't changing, what's the old fine structure, what isn't. And I'm not saying you got to do a Harvard business study, but someone has to make it really simple in 5 minutes to say, this is what's new. And, maybe that'll do it. But I just don't feel that I personally am prepared to say, oh, let's pass this tonight and away we go. I want to think about it a little bit more. I want to talk to some people on it, and I want to come back. You can come back to the next meeting.
You're absolutely right. We wanted to get the discussion going, and it's been on that list of things to do for a long time, and we wanted to get it off the list of things to do so that we can get organized in plenty of time for next year's fire season. Like, we're basically, we're kind of, the rush has happened for this year, but so it's not like it's urgent, but we don't want to get the start of the fire season next year. We want to have whatever we're going to do have in place, and just to get it up to date. So thank you for your discussion, and we'll bring it back.
So I have 2 quick questions, if I may, Mr. Mayor. What are we changing so we can change it for next time? Like, nobody said what they don't like. And one other thing I'd like to clarify.
Excuse me, I just did.
Oh.
No, I'm sorry, Bob. I don't want to cut you off, but I want to. I think I have enough to go on, and you and I can talk about it further. I want to move the meeting on so that we're not still going at 10 o'clock. So if you don't mind, we'll just we'll what I'm going to do is I guess I will ask if everyone agrees that the motions can be withdrawn for now.
Or deferred.
Well, all right, deferred. Which would you like? It's your call. I
didn't make the motion, did I? No.
No. Councillor Gorham Matthews moved and Councillor Wood seconded. So what? I'll ask them. What would you like to do? Do you want to withdraw your motions, or do you want to defer the discussion for another meeting?
Well, I suppose we may as well withdraw it for now. It's what you bring back may look a little different, so.
Yeah, we'll
withdraw
probably.
It. Either or,
Councillor Woods?
Either or for me. We could withdraw it or defer it till a later date.
All right. If you don't mind, let's just withdraw it. So I will note that's, but it will definitely come back, okay? So with a little bit more background information, and you'll have a chance to
Mr. Mayor,
to think it through.
Mr. Mayor, with due respect to you and Bob, I do appreciate the work you've done on this. It's just not as black and white as I think we'd like to see in some certain areas that we can catch up. Thank you.
Okay, fair enough. So I'm now trying to get back to the agenda, which I somehow or other managed to bury in the middle of things here. Hang on 1 second. No, that's not it. I think if I'm not missing something, and I'll just ask the CAO clerk to squawk if I've got the wrong if I'm going over something. But it looks we're at staff reports. Would that be? We've done all the bylaws.
Yes, that's
correct.
correct.
So we're at staff reports, and we have a number of reports deferral of penalty on current unpaid taxes update, and that report.
Leaving conference.
Councillor Lamb.
Now I have. Sorry, I have found I'm back to my main part of my agenda again. There's some resolutions got stuck in the middle of it here. Okay, so.
Leaving conference.
Susan Jennings?
The first staff report has to do with deferral of penalty on current unpaid taxes. The report was
Leaving
prepared.
conference.
Doug Hickey. The report was prepared by our treasurer. Sorry, treasurer, and so I'm just getting it up here. But if you would like to start, maybe if you don't mind, and just summarize what you put in front of us.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Collections for March and May 1st and 2nd interim installments have been very good. We came in a little bit higher than last year. So my recommendation is that we discontinue the waiving of interest for the first installment of the final billing in August.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Pat. There's I guess I'll test and see if you like the motion that is that corresponds to that. I'm looking for a mover and seconder that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive report FIN 2020-09, deferral of penalty on current unpaid taxes update for information, and that the Council does hereby remove the waiver of penalty of 1.25% after the first installment on the final taxes is due August 27th, 2020. So what that means, by the way, what that motion means to me is that any amounts that are outstanding from the two installments that were due in the spring of the year will start to incur interest as of August 27th if they're not paid. So can I, is my understanding of that correct, Pat?
Joining conference.
Yes,
Councillor
that is
Lamb.
correct. And it's on current taxes, not arrears.
And so we wouldn't be all right, but we're not extending arrears on the ones that are due on August 20th. We're not extending we're not extending the deferral of penalty and interest on the ones that are due on August 27th and October, whenever it is. Right?
Correct. So the taxes in arrears have been charged interest. It's only the unpaid taxes on the current year that we waived the interest since March.
I understand that, but are you saying that the people no longer have any grace for paying those first two installments if they didn't pay them? They're going to start to incur interest as of August 27th if they're not paid. Am I correct in saying that?
That is correct, yes.
And so on August 27th, if they don't pay the August 27th installment, they will start to incur penalties and interest on that too.
That is correct, yes.
So I just want to make sure everybody understands what this motion says, because you realize that there's as of August 27th there will be 3 installments in play that someone could potentially not have not have, and so far up until August 27th, they won't have incurred any penalties on interest on the first two that if they didn't pay them. So, would someone like to move that motion that you have in front of you there with that understanding of it? I hear a deathly silence.
Well, I'll move it. I guess I was on mute and I didn't realize. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Councilor Lamb. Yes, I've got
Joining
you.
conference.
Tyler Irwin.
Welcome, Tyler. We hear you. We're not quite at your item yet, but almost.
Hello, everybody.
So is there a seconder for the motion? We're at 12.1 on the agenda, Tyler.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have a seconder?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move. Councilor McEwen.
Thank you, Councilor McEwen.
I was on mute also. Sorry.
That's all right. Now, what do you know, everybody's following the instructions, that the right instructions, even though I didn't remind them, so that's good. Is there any discussion about this? Does anybody feel that this is reasonable, or unreasonable?
Yes, this is Councillor Gordon Matthews. May I ask a question?
You may.
I'm just wondering from Pat, has there been anybody that's contacted the municipality or indicated that they need more time to pay their taxes from the first two installments that they had already deferred? Or do you think that everyone's kind of got caught up that would normally be caught up?
I think everybody has caught up. I have had some conversations with a few individuals, and they were wondering, how much longer do they have, and we just went through the payment options. But there wasn't any pushback, no. I think most people have caught up.
Okay, thank you.
And in fact, your analysis says that we got more, we've collected more, a higher percentage, very slightly higher percentage this year than we did last year.
Yes, that
right?
is correct. Yeah. Now, I think it took some time. I mean, March, there was a little underpayment, but I think by the time May came around, we were pretty much caught up to date, yes.
Okay, well, thank you for that report and for being positive. I guess, are there any other comments or questions that people would have, councillors have about this? Are you ready for the question? This essentially, again, this passing this motion means that as of August 27th, we're basically, the grace period, so to speak, on penalties and interest is over. And so people will start to incur penalties and interest on whatever they haven't paid as of that time. Okay, I'm going to call the question. I'm going to go down the roll if you don't mind. Councillor Gordon Matthews.
Yes.
Councillor Lamb. Are you on mute, Councillor Lamb?
I am. I'm sorry about that. I'm not going back on mute.
Okay, so, but are you in favor of the motion?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Councillor McEwen?
Yes.
Councillor Woods?
Yes.
Okay, and I will support it as well, so that motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. And that brings us to 12.2, which is a staff report on landfill access permits for ratepayers, an implementation plan. So I'm looking for a mover and seconder that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby receives report admin 2020-08 landfill access permit for ratepayers implementation plan for information purposes, and that staff are hereby directed to proceed with the purchase of landfill access permit cards and implement the distribution of the cards as soon as practical, and that the following fees be added to the fees and charges by law. No charge for an initial card, one per property, $15 for a replacement card, and a one-time pass for visitors, $5 per bag of household garbage. So would somebody move that, please, at least for discussion?
I can move
I'll
that.
make the motion.
Wood.
So
I'll
I heard
second
Councillor Woods first and Councillor Gorham Matthews second. So we have it on the floor. Thank you. And questions and comments? Go ahead, please.
Leaving conference.
Credit?
Sorry, Councillor Lamb. These bag tags, like you mentioned visitor. I think you said visitors were $5 or something. What's a visitor per bag? My point is this. Kath and I own the cottage. We have all kinds of visitors that come up, right? My kids come up. They don't own the cottage, but they often take the stuff to the landfill site. Are they going to be seen as visitors, or are they going to be looked at? Because I got a little confused, Mr. Mayor, when you said one tag per household, and then you're saying, well, renters have to pay extra. I'm not necessarily against that, but if it's per household, isn't the renter paying that to the owner in their kind of rental agreement or something? If it's a household, then it's a household. I agree that I just want some clarification there.
Well, thank you. I have exactly the same question, but I was reading what was prepared by our staff, so I will turn the question over to the CAO clerk. I guess what I don't understand is why there is anything for visitors or anything per bag. It seems to me that anybody who is here is part of a property, and I'm assuming that every ratepayer who owns property that has. By the way, I have to add a caveat here. It has property that has a building on it. So if you have a vacant lot, I happen to own a couple of vacant lots. If I don't expect to get a landfill permit for a vacant lot, but if somebody is camping on their lot or has a trailer on it while they're building or something like that, I mean, maybe there's some issue about how they get a permit. But I'm assuming that everybody who owns property that has something built on it is, even if it's a hunt camp or whatever, is going to get a permit. And so I don't know who it is that would be using the $5 bag deal. And so that's my question to I guess I'm echoing Councillor Lamb's question. Madam Clerk, can you help us out with this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may, I'll ask Deputy Clerk Maintz to speak to this. This is her report, and I know she worked closely with the task force on developing these protocols. So could I ask Judy Maintz to speak to your question?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. So the idea of the $5 bag tag is for people who are camping in our community. So they're not on owned property per se, but they do want to get rid of their garbage before they head back to the city. So it's simply a means for people who are using our community that they can indeed, so if they're renting from a cottage and the cottage owners don't want to share their card, then they can still get rid of their garbage through purchase of this single-use tag. And with the passes, they go out that every home gets a pass, but you have the opportunity to purchase additional pass. So to you, Councillor Lamb, if your children come by and they're often going and taking garbage, you can just purchase an additional pass so they too can use the landfill facilities.
But sorry to jump in. I don't know if that answers. I mean, it partly answers the question of who needs the baggage tag. But I would think that if you're renting your property or you're allowing members of your family to use your property, they use your pass. I don't know why you would want to have extra passes. It seems to me these are more like, I see these things as not simply as landfill passes, but as ratepayer identification cards. You know, it says basically this property, and I would assume that the property identification number or something like that is going to be on it, so that you know.
There will be an identifier on the card. But this will help. Sorry.
Okay. Go ahead.
Your Worship. This will indeed help the landfill attendants to better identify who is allowed to use our landfill site and who is, let's say, from another community. We seem to have a lot of use of the York Street landfill from people coming from Magnetowan and that direction, who conveniently use our landfill because it's on their route home. So this would better help identify who is able to use our landfill.
Okay, but how are you going to, if you allow people to have you allow a Whitestone ratepayer to have multiple permits, what's to keep them from simply spending the $20 and giving the permit to a friend who's over in Magnetowan or something?
There's only one extra permit per household that we're allowing.
Okay. I guess I'm still not 100% convinced of the need for extra permits. I know that was there in the beginning, but I'm convinced of the $5 charge. Anyway, I want to hear from the other councillors what do others think about this.
Mr. Mayor?
Right. Sure.
Who's first? Councillor McEwen?
Yes. Go ahead,
okay.
Please.
I think the $5 thing, we discussed this at great length, and it gives people an option if, say, they're up visiting on their property or camping, and they have some garbage to get rid of on the way out of the community. At least for $5, they can get rid of a couple of bags. And as Judy mentioned, the biggest issue, I guess, of the $5 thing was if people wanted to go in and drop off a couple of bags on their way to work and give us $10, $5 per bag. Well, that could be a deterrent so that they won't keep doing that. Or maybe it's an easy way out and they'll use it when they absolutely have to. So that was that one. The vacant lot thing, I think each ratepayer would receive a card to use for their property if they come up and camp on it or whatever. I'm not sure if that's answering some of the questions, but the card is as an identifier for the fellows at the landfill. The second card was discussed at some length as to whether we should offer a second card, and it seemed that 2 vehicles per household or someone coming up and using your property as an occasional renter or family, and the option is there to have a second card on site for those people to use. It would be just a convenience thing if they want to pay the extra $15 to buy a second card.
Okay, so Are there other comments or questions from? Are there comments or questions from other councillors? Is what I mean to ask.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Woods.
Yes.
Just to kind of go with what Councillor McEwen was saying there, we did talk about this a lot. The $5 charge, what we originally started talking about that for was just for campers. That way we give someone an opportunity to get rid of the garbage here, even though they don't pay taxes, but they might come camping out in Crownland, Black Lake or something like that. That way, they're not going to, they drop a couple bags off for $5 and they don't have to leave it out there, and then we got garbage all over the place. What you were saying, actually, though, the landfill pass being your Whitestone identifier pass, basically, that's exactly the way that I thought about this. I thought we could tie this in future with other things that we have in the municipality, like even the fire permit thing. That could be something that could be tied into these cards at a future date, not right away, but as things change, we might be able to use these identification cards if they have an identifying serial number or something on them. We can use them for other things around the municipality that we deal with.
Okay, thank you. Could I just ask how exactly do people get the $5 tags? Where would they have to get them? Presumably you can't just show up at the landfill site and say, well, I'm here to dump garbage and I don't have a pass, but I'll give $5, or was that the intention?
Through your worship, we were intending to sell the passes. Sorry, we call them bag tags. At either at the municipal office, or they could be purchased at either landfill site.
Okay, thank you for that. I was just curious. Other comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor, Michelle Henry here.
Yeah.
It occurred to me that we do need some clarity. Are we issuing these access permits to each property, or just to each property with a home on the property, with a dwelling? Because you made a good point. If we issued them with to vacant properties, there could be property owners that get 3, 4, or 5. So I'm sort of asking the task force and Judy collectively what the intent was, just so that there's some clarity here.
Councillor Woods, I could say something to that.
Go ahead.
To me, you should get a tag for the properties. I don't see these tags as, like my tag, I wouldn't think would say Brian Woods on the tag. It would have the address to the property. And if someone has multiple properties, even if they're just coming up here to camp on them, they're going to produce a little bit of garbage. They pay their taxes. They should be allowed to use the facility.
Through you, Your Worship, it's Judith Main. That was the intention through the task force, and then later in the preparation of this, that everyone who owns property would receive a tag. It's not just restricted to people who have buildings on the property.
Yeah, I imagine it'd be a fair bit of extra work for you to figure out which ones have buildings and which ones don't, right?
I think it might be.
without looking through all the property files.
Yes.
Okay.
So, I'm okay. That clarification helps me a great deal because I'm with Councillor Woods on this. People do pay taxes, and it's set by impact, and if they come up for 2 weeks in the summertime and we tell them they've got to pay $5 for each thing of garbage, I don't think that's correct. But anyway, and I guess as far as renters are concerned, if you're going to rent your property, you're either going to, and I want to clarify that you can do that.
Leaving conference.
Patricia Allen.
So if I own a property and I'm renting it, I can leave my card on the fridge or something and say if at the end of the week, or get an extra card. I expect you to take your garbage to the landfill site, and they do, and they use that card, then that's fine with me, right? So I guess there's a portability to the card. And I certainly am for non-residents. I'd like to discourage them entirely from coming. I don't want, the Magnetawan residents, because it's convenient to come over with 5 loads of garbage or 5 bags of garbage because they've been up for 2 weeks, and dump them in at York Street because, and I'm not even sure that $5 does that. I want to really discourage people from outside using our landfill site. And I don't know whether council shares that or not. So I'm all for at least $5 bag tag for non-residents, right? Or not, I guess we should call them residents, because or not owners,
visitors,
but residents. Well, or there's a lot of renters who rent full time, right? They're here 12 months of the year renting properties from people, right? And hopefully they're going to get a tag, right, or whatever, right? They're not going to be classed as a non-landowner or something, right?
No.
So I think I'm kind of okay with it. We're trying to, however, get away from collecting the $5 at the landfills, right? But if you want them selling $5 bag tags and whatever, then I guess we can have them do that. I don't know whether, you've got to come up with inventory of the bag tags and who has the money and how does it get deposited. There seems to be a lot perhaps there, but if this is what the task force wants, then I guess go forward.
Sorry, Your Worship, it's Judith Mace again.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, the $5 bag tags are to be done in-house. And this week we're getting a POS system at our first landfill site at York Street. So the $5 fee will be through debit.
Okay, good.
At both of the landfill sites. So we really are keeping with the no cash at landfill sites.
Okay, well that's good.
Yeah.
So just 2 other questions that I have. Question number 1: do these cards have a mag stripe, or are they smart cards? Or are they readable electronically? I want to know.
Are you asking Judith?
I heard a dead silence. That sounds to me like, yeah. No, I don't care who answers. If whoever knows,
So sorry, I thought my mute was off. It's Judith Mace here. Sorry.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm sorry. Can I just hear your question one more time?
I'm wanting to know if the cards are readable electronically using a POS device. You can either, yeah, do they have a mag stripe or something so that you can read them?
So we did look into that. We did some research on that, and it turns out, oh jeez, I've got a dog going crazy here. It turns out that we'd have to purchase the entire system for magnetic strips, because we don't use them for anything else, and that was not feasible economically. So these cards do have an identifying number, which will be linked to our Munisoft software. So each property will be linked to a certain numbered card, but there is not an electronic reading device or strip on the card.
Okay, well let me just point out to you that means that if you're going to do anything with that number, like bill people back for something that, or do some other thing, you're going to have to write. Somebody's going to have to write it down. Somebody at the landfill site, or if we use the card for another purpose, for property identification. Somebody would have to write it down. I guess I would really be looking long and hard at making them readable electronically, so that you can, whoever, if you need to present it for some reason, you can put it through a a Stripe reader. The Stripe readers themselves are not. That's not a particularly expensive device. I mean, if you're talking smart cards, yes, but an ordinary MagStripe card.
Right. But the actual device on writing to the card is part of a whole system that went way beyond an unbudgeted item in our current expenses for this year.
Okay, well, all right. I'll leave that one. The other comment I was going to make was in regards to campgrounds and businesses. I think we might have to consider some special things for
leaving conference,
for outfits like the the Duck Rock, for example, which collects garbage from a fair area, generates a fair bit of garbage of various kinds. You also have a couple of campgrounds. The one I call the one that used to be called Lazy Acres, which is down on 520 by the Bunny Trail. Bennett's have a campground. The OSSTF campground on Balsam Road. My understanding is that most of those people actually collect garbage for their campers together and bring it up en masse as opposed to having individuals. But if that isn't the case, then you might run into a situation like if individual campers at one of those are expected to get rid of their own garbage, then you have one property which would have a significant number of people wanting to dump garbage and maybe not. I don't know whether they would purchase additional tags for them or what, but they would need more than one additional tag per property. So
right.
I just throw that out as it can not. This is not an obstacle to doing it. I mean, it can be overcome. It's just something to think about.
Through you, Your Worship, that was indeed discussed in both the task force and moving forward with this report, and it was sort of determined through just personal knowledge from people that most of the campgrounds do bring it as one lump sum of garbage, but this is an option if somebody just wants to get rid of a bag of their own trash. They can come and purchase a tag. Yeah. Because, again, they're not paying taxes in our community when they're camping. So we kind of tried to keep our focus on who was paying taxes that they could use our landfill.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Judy. Are there other comments or questions, or can I call the question on this?
I just have a question. Does anyone know what the teachers' camp does? I mean, there's a lot of people down there. I don't know whether they individually take their garbage in or whether there's a bin down there that they collect it in and haul it off somewhere. Does anyone know that?
Councillor McEwen and Councillor Lamb, I inquired about that one, and that is exactly what they do. They have a collection location for recycling and 2 or 3 different issues there.
Okay, thank you.
So are you ready for the question? All right, I'll call it. Councillor Carmen Matthews.
Yes.
Councillor Lamb.
Yes.
Councillor McEwen.
Yes.
Councillor Woods.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm also in favor, so this motion is carried. Thank you for the folks who worked on that. We're now at 12.3, which is a 25-ton tandem trailer. And the motion we're looking for is that Council Municipality of Whitestone hereby receives report PW 2020-08, tender 2020 14. I think those should those be the same number or no? The report number and the tender number are different, I guess. Okay.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. 25-ton tandem trailer.
This time.
Yeah, for information purposes, and that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby awards the above referenced tender in the amount of $34,200 plus HST to JC Trailers of Keswick, Ontario. Is there a mover and seconder?
I'll move that.
I'll second. Councilor McEwen.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Councilor Gorham Matthews, seconded by Councilor McEwen. Discussion on this one. Okay, I don't hear any discussion, so I guess we're good to go with this particular one. Once again, I'll go down the roll. Councilor Gorham Matthews.
Yes.
Councilor Lamb.
Yes.
Councilor McEwen.
Yes.
Councilor Woods.
Yes.
All right. That one is carried. Thank you. And now finally we get to the building report. Once again, oh, sorry, I see. I was looking at a page thinking it was part of this. Okay, now we have the building. I have the building report in front of me. I'm going to get a mover and seconder, please, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby receives report DLDG 2020-03 Building Department Update and Building Permit Activity for the period April 1st to June 30th, 2020 for information. Mover and seconder.
I'll move it, Councilor Lamb.
Thank you. Seconded by
I'll second, Councilor Woods.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch who that was.
Go ahead, Brian.
Councilor Woods, was it?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we were moved and seconded. I will ask our Chief Building Official, Tyler Irwin, if he has any comments he wants to make by way of introduction.
Good evening, everyone. We're staying pretty busy. There seems to be lots going on in the municipality and lots of inquiries in regards to purchasing new properties and building questions and that. So even despite COVID-19 and that, it seems to be still really busy. So that's a good sign. And there's some of the orders are getting dealt with, which is good. We haven't been able to proceed with any through the court systems for non-compliance as the court's been closed. So I believe it's opening back up in September, and that at that time we'll put some before the courts to gain compliance. But other than that, everything seems to be going fairly well.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. Are there questions or comments on the report?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just a comment.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Councilor McEwen.
Oh, yeah, just a comment that looking at the increase of this year over last year, especially on the inquiry side of it, it's making for some fairly big numbers for this year when it all comes to fruition, I'm sure. So looks like a busy time, and it's looking good in spite of COVID. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tyler, Councillor Lamb. I haven't been up there for a few days. What's happened with anything happened with the Dragons Cafe?
So I called the contractor, and they said from guaranteed a week from this coming Monday, it'll be all cleaned up and back to normal there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other comments or questions on the report?
I have one, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Woods.
Go ahead.
I'm just reading on the month-to-month statistical report, and it's just a question because I don't know. Under May, commercial, 1 permit, construction value of $260,000. We had a commercial build done in the township. Is that what that is?
That's correct. So that's the library addition.
Gotcha.
And the next one over in June is for the Sand Dome. So
okay.
if you see, so if you see in the next column over where it says not applicable, just obviously we don't charge the municipality the permit fee. So that's what those two permits are for.
Mm. Perfect. Thanks very much, Tyler.
You're welcome.
Okay then. Can I assume that everyone was agreeable to receive this report? There are no objections? All right, hearing none, I will declare the motion carried. That brings us to number 13. And thank you, Tyler.
Thank you, everybody.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just before we leave business matters, I'd like to thank Judith for her work on the landfill report. And I know she's done a lot of background work supporting the landfill and changes. So thanks to her.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Very good. Okay, so we're at 13.1 now, which is COVID-19 pandemic and related
Tyler
matters. And there was, in discussing this, the CAO clerk and I concluded that for the most part, playground and outdoor spaces have reopened as part of Phase 3. So the thought was that perhaps we should be opening ours, and I wonder if someone would like to move that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestown hereby supports the opening of the playground and outdoor spaces effective immediately. And I would just comment that I believe that there would be signage which would remind people that they're using it at their own risk, and that it's because of course it's unsupervised, and perhaps we need to make it clear in our communication that our municipal staff are not cleaning it in between uses or anything like that. So it's the public. I have actually noticed members of the public using it, but we perhaps need to cover ourselves by making it, cover our liability by making sure that folks understand that we're not doing anything special to clean it, in the same way that we're not doing anything special to clean the washrooms or change rooms in the Dundome. So, anyway. Would someone like to move that motion, please, that we reopen the playground and outdoor spaces?
I'll make that motion.
Councillor Gorham Matthews moves, seconded by?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Woods.
Councillor Woods. discussion. Anybody think that's a bad idea or a good idea?
I got caught on the mute thing. I was saying I'd second that, but of course you didn't hear it.
Yeah.
I'm glad Councillor Wood did it. So, do people still have to? I assume they do. Like in down here, I think we're still in stage 2 or 3 or something. But do they have to social distance on the beach and in the playground, or can kids just toss and turn and go on the beach and have fun and not? I don't know the answer to that by Ontario law.
It's
or by emergency plan law.
It's not really an enforceable law in general unless you have a huge number of people congregating in a space. But the guideline is still there very strongly. Okay, social distancing is still the norm, and anyway, it's
our signage says that. I take it.
I believe it does talk about physical distancing. Am I right, Michelle?
You know what? I think it is. We put up some temporary signs. We haven't got a permanent sign up yet. We're just trying to decide what it should say at the beach. But it does speak about physical distancing. And what I'd like to add about the playground is someone opened them. Someone took, and we're not sure who. It wasn't a staff member. Took all of the caution tape off over the weekend, and we're not sure where they took it to because there's no garbage cans there now. But so someone took it upon themselves to open up the playgrounds and I guess let their kids use them. So that's just of note.
Well, as I say, people were using it even when the tape, from time to time when the tape was on it. I noticed, and I guess it's one of those things. If we were, I don't like it that people would go and renew. That's like defacing a municipal sign, taking the tape off. But the reality is, if we can't enforce it, we're not. It doesn't make a lot of sense to keep it closed, likely. Anyway. Are there any other comments about this or questions?
So are all the COVID-19 matters off the table now? We've reopened. Oh no, I guess we still have the community hall still, don't we? Okay. Are there
the community center and the office are still closed essentially to the public.
Okay, and there's no discussion tonight on either one of those situations. I guess it's for another day. Eh?
That was the thought.
Okay, fine with me. I just wanted to know what was still left.
Yeah. Okay, can I ask if there's any objection to the reopening the playground and the outdoor spaces? Okay, hearing none, I will declare that motion carried. Regional broadband, there is a report there for you. I can comment on it if there are questions, but I guess what I'll do is ask if there's a mover and seconder that we received the report on the regional broadband summary / next steps, it's called, dated Wednesday, July 8th, 2020 for information. It's really it's really a report of a meeting that an electronic meeting that I attended that it was organized primarily by Mayor McDermott of Seguin and Bert Leverance from Archipelago, but it involves, as you see, participants from the whole of the whole of Parry Sound District and even some of the Muskoka mayors, and the whole initiative is to try to get organized to provide a response for the larger area on the assumption that, and in fact, the Ontario government has just opened up an opportunity to make applications for some broadband funding. So there's things happening, and the advice we got from various people was, well, you should have a plan, and you should all be working together to the extent possible to. So that's the purpose of these conversations that have been taking place. This is the second one that's been had in the last couple of months. So anyway, this is just a report for information to let you know that stuff is happening. Could I get a mover and seconder to receive the report, please?
I'll move, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Woods.
Councillor Woods moves, seconded by?
I'll second Councillor McEwen.
Councillor McEwen. Any discussion, comments, questions?
Yes, I just had a question, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
So this draft resolution, are we to pass something similar to that, or is this just something that you're still discussing as part of your group?
You know what? We don't. It's interesting. We talked about that. Help me out, Madam CIO Clerk. What? Well, I see the resolution as part of the report, but we don't have it on our agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. We decided to put it not to put it on the agenda at this meeting. We could be asked to bring it back to the August meeting as a formal resolution under business matters, but it's there right now just for information as a companion to the report, as an understanding that there's a possibility of support for some possible financing and moving forward. So we can, if Council wishes, we can bring this back for discussion at the next meeting in a more formal manner.
Yeah, and we would still be before AMO, right? So that's, if we do it by then, we're probably all right, I would think.
Yes, it would be August 4th, then the next council meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, I was just thinking when I was reading over the draft resolution, it all ticks all the boxes of the things that we've been talking about all spring with regards to the deficiency with the internet that we have in this community. So I was just thinking that if it's something that we can put forward, it's one more thing that we do to let everyone know that we support this and that we want it within our community.
Yes, well, I think that we're trying to identify every opportunity we can. The significant thing that has happened so far is that we've got, you'll notice that there were three sort of parties at the end of that draft resolution. So there's the Parry Sound Muskoka Community Network. There's this Smart Now Network, which is Liz McWalter's effort in West Parry Sound. And there's a Blue Sky one, which is farther north on the Muskoka side. And they were operating independently, and the concern that we got from some of the politicians was, this is like a divide and conquer thing. You got to get your act together, and so there's, as you see there is an RFP to try to put together an actual plan of, like, we think we have most of the data about where the deficiencies are and where they are geographically and so on. The question is, how do you address them? Because there's no one solution that fits all of it, and so there has to be some kind of a plan to get a backbone and then build out the so-called last miles. And this is this is proposed to put that together so that we can really take advantage of some of some of the funding that we think is going to be available. So that's there is stuff happening. It's a little bit more organized and coordinated than more cohesive than it has been in the past, I would say. And I definitely think we should try to be a part of it because we need something we need here. So, if there are no other comments or questions, can I assume that you're agreeable to receiving this report for information? All right, I'm hearing no objection. Next one, 13.3, proposed historical panels for the Grange. I guess, I don't know if this is self-explanatory. What we need to do, I think, is have a little discussion about what people think about the pictures. I don't know, is there anybody that wants to lead this discussion off? Councillor Gorham Matthews, were you involved in this at all? Or
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, I've been working on this. So just as a little background, we had gotten these pictures from the Historical Society. They'd gone through and chosen some that they thought would be appropriate and that were high enough quality that could be translated into the panels on the Grange. So what we have space for is 6 pictures. If you're looking across the Grange from left to right, there will be 4 that will be kind of horizontal, and then at the far end on the right will be 2 that are vertical. The pictures will be 5 feet by 8 feet tall. That's their standard size that they can do them in, and it won't require any cutting of the panels and things. That's the standard size of the panel. So all these pictures have been vetted already by Signcraft, and they've said that these ones are all appropriate to being put on the Grange. I just wasn't comfortable making the final decision. I have the 6 that I would like to use, but I don't want to pick 6 pictures and then somebody drives by the Grange and says, oh, why would you choose that picture? So I'm just showing you the pictures so that we can have a little discussion to make sure everyone is on the same page. I don't know if you want more landmarks or you want more people-type pictures. So you can look through these. If you want, I can go through and tell you the ones that I thought were appropriate, or if you've already selected ones that you think are appropriate as well.
Okay, comments from councillors?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Wood.
Yes.
I think this is a fantastic idea. I can't wait to see these pictures up. I'd like to know what ones Beth thinks would be the best.
All right.
I love seeing stuff like this. And in a community like ours, if we get the opportunity to put all those up against the Grange and have pictures of, this place many years ago, historical photos, I think it's fantastic. I'm really excited to see this all finished.
I second that comment. If Beth could give us her numbers.
Sure. So if you are looking at the pictures, if you go to the second page, the first one that I liked was the entering Dunchurch from the northeast. It's just that picture from the top of the hill as you're coming into Dunchurch. That's the first one. The second one is just on the next page there, the picture of Jimmy Dobbs' store with the old car and the gentleman standing in front of the store and the old gas pump. And on that same page, the third picture would be the ladies with the horse and buggy in front of the old house. Picture number 4 would be on the following page, the old picture of Ardbeg in the 1930s. And then the 5th and 6th picture would be 2 of the old logging photos. The one with the gentleman up on the big triangle, I guess you would call it. There's probably a good word for that, above the logs. And then the picture of the gentleman standing on the logs in the real old-fashioned clothing and everything. So those were my top 6 choices. I don't know if there's one that jumps out at you that any of you would prefer, or if you want us to look for something else, if there's a aspect to the community that you don't think we've captured that you would like included, let me know.
Councillor Gorm Matthews, are there any pictures starting in Maple Island or that area, or is that important or not? It's just a question, really.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the logging pictures came from. They may be from that area. Yeah, I don't know if there's any that are specific to Maple Island or not.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could,
yeah,
there are 2 log homes which were Wawash Kesh, I believe. They're very unique. They represent what a homesteader would have built for his family and lived in, which is only like a 20 by 30 log home. There's 2 of those representing the homesteading part of it, which I think are quite unique. I'm not sure what I would substitute from. Maybe the guy standing in the sawmill. That's a pretty busy picture, but it's very unique also. But that would take it back through certainly Maple Island and the Wawash Kesh area as the homesteading homes of the day.
Yeah, we could substitute one of the logging photos for the homestead on Wawash Kesh.
Can I just go back to what you said earlier, Beth? You said the panels are 5 feet wide by 8 feet high. Is that how they are? Or
yes, the ones that will be on the left side of the window on the Grange will be run 8 feet across along the bottom, then 5 feet tall. And then on the right side of the window, the roof is up higher, so there'll be 2 panels there between the window and the edge of the building that will run 5 feet across on the bottom and be 8 feet tall. So four will be kind of horizontal, and then 2 will be vertically tall.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just wondered because the aspect ratio for a lot of your pictures is wide. They're wider. They're like landscape in
that's right.
In paper terminology, they're landscape, right?
Yes. So she will be editing them. There are a couple photos that are appropriate for being the vertical photos, but the majority of the photos will look better being horizontal.
I'll just tell you for what it's worth, what I saw when I first looked at the pictures. I said, okay, what I would do is I would take I would take the picture of Dobbs' store and I would put it on the I would just put it large on the whole big wall of the of the Grange, like I would I guess maybe consider using a smaller number of larger pictures. That picture, I mean, of the ones that seem most appropriate to me, especially for Dunchurch, I remember that store. Okay, when I first came here, that store, it didn't have the gas pumps in front of it, but it was still there. And so it's kind of like I also wonder how a picture like number 1, which is the looking down the hill into Dunchurch from the east, I wonder how that's going to. I mean, It's an interesting picture, sure enough. It's not isn't all that attractive, but I don't know whether it has enough contrast to render really well on the. But I guess if the people that are making the sign think that it is, I guess it at least shows you Whitestone Lake and people will figure out what it is, I guess.
Well, I think
I guess you can see you can see the. I was going to say you can see the church, right? Do you see the steeple of the church in that one? I don't know. Anyway,
I think part of the project was that it was going to be tied into the website and on the social media too. There'd be a little. The pictures would be on there as well with explanation and a little write-up from the Historical Society with more background on each photo. So you wouldn't just have the photo, you'd be able to get more information about it. And definitely for number one, if you want, that's why I threw it out there, is if you want more people-oriented photos where there's something to talk about as opposed to just scenery photos, we can definitely substitute something for there. I'm just trying to get a feel for what everyone's looking for in these.
Well, I don't object to your choices. I don't know if I would put 2 logging photos there necessarily, but I think but anyway, the picture that I like the best of all of them is the one of Jazz Dobbs' store, which I remember as a kid.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah?
I guess I can remember some of those also. The whole thing takes me back through history memory lane here, in a sense. And I think Beth's done just an excellent job in picking the ones that she's got. And I'm sure they come from probably Andy Hauser's collection and the Historical Society. That one going down into Dunchurch, which is such barren looking, but that's exactly the way it was. The homesteaders came in and they took everything that resembled a piece of wood to heat their homes and cook meals. And so they just, McKellar has pictures of the same thing where the homesteaders literally took all wood product and it made it into something useful for their home for steps or otherwise, or burnt it. So that was the way it looked for quite a while until it started growing back again, a lot of years later. So it's pretty indicative. So anyway.
Well, so are you ready? I'm. There's a motion, a suggested motion here, which is that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby directs staff to proceed with the installation of historical panels for the Grange with the following pictures. We can just say as discussed if you want, and Beth can take away the feedback that she's got if that's. Is that?
As long as everybody thinks I'm on the right track, we're ready to go. Signcraft's ready. I have the estimate, and they will install it and everything for us. So,
wow,
You're on the right track. Go forward.
I think you're on the right track for sure.
Yeah, we just need permission to keep going.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask her one question?
Sure.
The side of the wall, would 8 feet possibly put you down too close to the ground for snow and splash up and such? Do you think you want to go that low to the ground? Like 8 feet from the top? I don't know.
Yeah, that far into the building, it'll still be 2 or 3 feet up from the bottom.
Okay.
But definitely, if we get a lot of snow, the bottom of the photos will be covered up in the winter.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
Okay. Well, would somebody like to move the motion then that we says direct staff to proceed with the installation with the I don't know. Do you want to go through and list the pictures, or do you want to just say with pictures as discussed? And leave it for them to see how it works out with the ones that have been suggested.
As discussed. I think it should say as discussed.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be easier if it says as discussed, because if when Suncraft gets working on them, if one should happen to not translate onto the blow up as nicely as we anticipated, that would give us the ability to switch it out without coming back to council again.
Yeah, that would be my suggestion. Anyway, so the motion again, I'll read it to you, is that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby direct staff to proceed with the installation of historical panels for the Grange with pictures as discussed. Somebody like to move that, please?
I'll move that, Councillor Woods.
Councillor Woods, seconded by?
I'll move that, Councillor McEwen.
Councillor McEwen. All right then. Let's. I'll call the roll on this one. Councillor Cora Matthews.
Yes.
Councillor McEwen.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Lamb. Hey, Councillor Lamb.
Yes.
Councillor McEwen. Councillor Woods.
Yes.
Okay, the motion is carried unanimously. So, Beth and whoever else is working on this, go for it. And thank you. So, that brings us to correspondence, but we're 3 hours. Do we need a curfew motion, Madam Clerk? Oh, I think we lost our
Sorry,
clerk.
Mr. Mayor. We're permitted 3.5 hours. And
oh, it's 3.5 hours. I'm sorry.
We'll need the curfew at 10 o'clock. And before we jump into correspondence, just one last item, that's 13.4, the municipal office expansion project.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. When there's no written report, sometimes I just flip over and the next thing sticking in front of me is correspondence. So, okay, so I'll let the CAO introduce this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Council may recall, during budget discussions, there was money set aside for the expansion of the municipal office to give a little bit more room for staff. Some folks that should have an office don't, and we're pretty cramped in here, and the COVID-19 situation amplified that spatial problem. So I had some estimates done and 3 options looked at by the architect, but there's possibly more options to look at, and it occurred to me that we should do this as a team. I got the ball rolling by talking to the architect and getting that work done, but it may be appropriate to have a little task force to look at the options. I took the liberty of adding myself and CBO Tyler Irwin. Tyler, because he has some experience in these matters and can, advise us from the building perspective. I included myself because I'm project managing this. But I thought a couple of members of council would be appropriate just to help us guide us to where we're going. And we may or may not be in budget, and we may, have to look at this in a different way. One of the thoughts is that money we set aside for the library or budgeted for the library is no longer necessary, simply because we found we had the FedNAR grant, but we'd already budgeted the money. So it allows us to make maybe some more robust discussions or options in regard to expanding the office and thinking not just for next year or the year after, but thinking ahead for the next 10 to 15 years. What do we need here? Do we go up? Do we go out? And just looking for a little task force to put the ideas together and then come back to council by September 8th.
Okay, thank you. All right. So the motion that we have, the suggested motion is that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby establish a task force to review and make recommendation in respect to the expansion options for the municipal office and report back to Council at the September 8th, 2020 Council meeting. And then that the Council consists of, and there's a couple of blanks and the clerk's name and the chief building official's name. Can I get a mover and seconder?
Mr. Mayor,
I'll move.
McEwen.
Councillor McEwen moves, and I think I heard Councillor Gorman Matthews. Is that right?
Sure. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that opens it up for discussion. We can have discussion, and I guess we should also decide what names we want to put into the blanks.
Mr. Mayor, can I speak now, or do I have to wait till questions from the public?
You can speak if you want.
Yeah, I'd like to sit on this committee because I think it's maybe going to affect some of the fire department or whatever. So I know I'm not a counselor, but I would like to sit on this committee.
Well, all right. We'll I guess we can take that into consideration. Regardless of whether you're part of the task force, Bob, you would certainly be consulted on, as I indicated to you previously, on anything that's being discussed that would affect you. And I guess it might not, but anyway. Are there other comments from councillors? Or other councillors who are keen to be a part of this?
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Woods.
Yeah.
So the expansion, what is it that we're trying to accomplish in the office? I know we're running out of space, but it's like a specific goal that we're trying to reach. Is it like do we need more area for bathrooms or another whole office area built, or is it like file storage or?
Well, there are a number of there are a number of functional requirements, and they haven't actually been. I guess I'd have to remember, because I know that our CAO has provided previous reports, and maybe there is some of this in there. But I think, to summarize, the office is really cramped for the number of people that we have, and some people do not have suitable space. And probably the best example is our CBO. He needs a place where he can meet with people who come in from, members of the public who come in to talk about building plans and so on, and he needs to be able to spread drawings out and so on. And there isn't really a good place to do that. The lunchroom is not it gets used for various things, but during the COVID-19, of course, it's not suitable for meetings and other ad hoc gatherings and people who are just coming in to work on something like the cemetery mapping or things of that sort. So we really don't have much. There's no space in the office itself to hold a meeting, and there's not really. There's the one little washroom at the front, which probably should be at the back with an expanded lunchroom kind of space. There's also there's just more square feet required for people who have desks in there. They're pretty much packed in, and And again, there's no space at the front of the office if somebody comes in and needs to sit down and talk to, to talk to somebody about whatever it is, tax arrears or some kind of thing like that. If you want to have a private conversation, there's really only two offices where the doors can be closed. So that's kind of in a nutshell the office, the main constraints on office space. Plus, we don't have any expansion. If we were to get an intern or somebody to work on communications or whatever, those kinds of things, they would not have a place to work, and they would have to, they'd have to do it from home, which they have to do in the short run. So, it basically boils down to the fact that when the building was rebuilt, it was built for the exact capacity of the people who were working there at the time, and there was no room allowed for expansion. And what we said we were going to do previously was we were going to first look at the site itself, and we are getting a site plan drawing available shortly that covers everything, the things, including the things that are underground, so that we can, like septic systems and so on, so that we can see what the constraints are on moving in any given direction. And of course, as far as that issue is concerned, that's a factor from the from the point of view of the nursing station, if there's going to be any expansion there. So we kind of need to know what the options are. We need to figure out if things are going to be expanded, where can they go, and what's the optimal way of creating future expansion. And then we can come back down to say, well, all right, here's a plan that would allow, here are some options for how to add additional space to the office, whether it's up or behind or beside, or and the relative costs and issues associated with functionality associated with various options. And then that would be something that council could consider maybe making an investment in. So that's the that's what this is about. I think we do have to, I think you're right, Councillor Woods, we have to document the what the functional requirements of the space are. Maybe it has to be sort of put together in a concise way, but those are the kinds of things that are contemplated. So we're just trying to. It's one of these things that requires some offline work to be done on it. It's not something that we could do effectively on like developing some proposals for discussion for consideration by council. Not something that can be done on the floor of a council meeting.
Okay, thanks for that. I would be interested in joining said committee if that was an option.
Okay, well, I'm just making a little list of people who. And any others want to speak about this?
Yeah, Councillor Lamb, I'll speak on it. I'm not available. I'm just not available between now and September. So, but Mr. Mayor, you lead council, and I think you may be an obvious one. Also, Councillor McEwen has been interested, of course, in the nursing station and the office sort of area. I don't know whether these are single things or double things, and I don't want to overcomplicate it by saying, oh, look at the nursing station too. But if something's going to be done with the nursing station, and I just throw this out, is an option to expand it so much that, you can put staff over there, I don't know. The answer probably is no in terms of convenience, but there's lots of places that have two buildings, right? And so anyway, I don't know, but I would suggest either Councillor McEwen or yourself, Mr. or Mayor Comrie, unless I'm okay with Beth too if she wants to be on. So anyway, those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. Anything from Councillor McEwen or Councillor Gorham Matthews?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I would nominate you if you would stand to represent us on the office/nursing station study. I guess it's all kind of connected, certain amount. And I'm on the nursing station to boot, so we'll have a number of things that will run kind of concurrent, I'm sure, as we get out of COVID. Although this is very short term. But I'd be pleased to nominate you if you would accept to be a second person there.
Okay, well, I'm certainly willing to, if that's the wish of council. So we have I guess I don't know. As you perhaps know, I'm not hung up on this, particularly on how many councillors there are on a committee. But I would, I guess I would. The idea is to have a task force that's fairly nimble, so we don't have not have the entire council working offline as a task force. So I don't know how many more. I don't know how many of us we need to have on there, but Councillor Woods. Or Councillor McEwen, are you suggesting that you don't need to be on it, and maybe Councillor Woods can go on, or what? Or
that would be my thought. Councillor Gordon Matthews should enter into this a little bit too. She's certainly a capable candidate, but I would certainly suggest volunteer for one and you for a second by my choices first off.
Well, Councillor Nora Matthews hasn't spoken yet, so I should give her a chance to.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to comment that right now it's very hard for me to meet people during the day because I'm working Monday to Friday right now, so it would be difficult to meet at the municipal office during the day for myself. It's hard to get away from my office before 3. So I just think in terms of their flexibility in meeting, if it's going to be staff, they would want to meet during the day, during business hours, and that would be difficult for me to do right at this moment. I'm much better on the panel where I can work by myself at my own time.
I understand. Okay, well, thank you. Okay, just want to give everybody an opportunity. So, what's your...
I'll second Councillor McEwen's suggestion that the Mayor and Councillor Woods be on the committee.
Okay, all right. No, thank you. That's... I will write their names into the available slot. So is that I know that Chief Whitman expressed his interest in being part of the committee. Do you wish to add his name to it, or? I'm asking the councillors. Or do you think 4 is enough for the task force?
Mr.
Well, I
Merrick?
think certainly.
Sorry, go ahead.
All right, go ahead. I was going to say that for now we're just exploring all the options, so probably having the 4 would be sufficient.
All right. You were going to say something, Councillor McEwen, I think?
Yeah, that was basically it, Mr. Mayor. Bob is an excellent resource guy to have for the connection to the building there and such, for sure. But initially, I think the task force could maybe come up with suggestions.
Well, perhaps we can settle with. I mean, I can certainly commit to Bob that we will involve him in any of the discussions that effective and keep him up to date on what we're thinking of doing. So we, I want to alleviate his concerns that somehow or other he's going to get done out of some of his space that he already has and needs. And that isn't really the intention of this. I mean, it may get affected in some way or other depending on how we enlarge it, but we're not proposing to just sort of take over fire hall space and use it for something else. That isn't. I don't think that's in the cards. So we'll. Anyway, let me read the motion to you as I have it, because we got to keep moving here. That the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby establish a task force to review and make recommendations in respect to the expansion options for the municipal office and report back to Council at the September 8th, 2020 Council meeting. And that the committee shall consist of the Mayor, Councillor Woods, CAO Clerk Michelle Henry, and CBO Tyler Irwin. Are you ready for the question on this? I'll call the roll. Councillor Gorman-Matthews.
Yes.
Councillor Lamb. Councillor Lamb, are you muted?
I am, yes. Thank you.
Are you in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor McEwen.
Yes.
Councillor Woods.
Yes.
All right. And I concur, so we have a task force. More work to do. All right. Thank you for that.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, our curfew.
Yes. I was just flipping through trying to see where that was, but I have it. Could I get a motion to continue for another half hour, please?
I'll make that motion, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. Seconded by?
Councillor Woods.
Any disagreement? Okay, thank you. That motion is carried. We got bought ourselves another few minutes. Correspondence. Whereas the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone has reviewed the correspondence items as listed on page 5 of the July 20th Council agenda, now therefore be it resolved that Council does hereby receive the correspondence items for information with the following extracted for further discussion action. So which ones do you wish to talk about of those A to M?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, could we discuss L?
Okay, thank you. L. This has to do with Black Lake.
Mr. Mayor, could we, I just want to say 30 seconds on the Beth Koski resignation at the library board. I don't know what number. It's a handwritten.
I'm looking to where, E, sorry, I was
Yes.
looking for it and I couldn't see where, I noticed it before, but yeah, okay, E,
Thank you.
Koski, Resing, okay, thank you. Any other ones? Okay, if that's it, it's B, E, and L. All right. Can I get a mover and seconder for that motion, please?
I'll move, Mr. Mayor. Councilor McEwen.
Thank you. Seconded by?
I'll second it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. Anything further about that, or can we agree to that motion? Okay, thank you. We just did. So matters arising from correspondence would be item E. You wanted to speak to Seth Koski's resignation, Councilor Lamb.
Yeah, and I just wanted to publicly, thank Beth for her work on the board over the years, and this resignation is because the Koskis, Bill and Beth, have sold their place on Farley's Road or near Farley's Road, and are moving, I think, back to the Barrie area or whatever. But anyway, I want to just publicly thank them for their contribution to the community through the years, and specifically to the library board. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that one. Item L, which was regarding to people camping at Black Lake. Councillor Gorham Matthews.
So I received this email, and when I did speak to Mayor Comrie regarding it, and he had a lot of good insight into the issue up there, and I had heard him discuss before that it was a problem in the community, and I just wanted the attention brought to this issue that there is a problem happening up there with regards to garbage and people misusing the area, and I kind of wanted to give Mayor Comrie the opportunity to kind of discuss some of his thoughts towards what we can do to address some of these problems before we have a real disaster up there in this beautiful area.
Well, okay, thanks. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, and I don't have a concrete proposal of any sort to put in front of you, but I think we have, and I've commented on this before, I think we have a kind of a problem brewing, which in my perception is getting worse for a number of reasons. One of, not the least of which, is the fact that there are more different ways that one can access that hydro corridor where the high voltage lines run from Bruce up to Sudbury and from Bruce Nuclear. And so what happens is you get groups of people, some organized more than others, who come from all over the place with four-wheel drive vehicles, often jacked up on jacked up suspensions, and they run up and down that corridor, which goes right through Black Lake, by the way, or goes right by the east end of Black Lake, and it's they sometimes, some folks refer to it as mudding, because you tend to get stuck in mud and the vehicles get stuck and they haul them out and they keep going. And if you're into that sort of thing, I guess it's a lot of fun. But the problem is there's a lot of drinking going on, and as we commented earlier, people are lighting fires all over the place and not being careful with them. And then there's the garbage, which was the cause of this complaint. And we actually had some people who were volunteers who were going in the Clear Lake Road as far as Black Lake, and that is a fair junket if you've ever decided to do it. don't do it with a really good vehicle. I would advise you, because it's a bush road, and even that's maybe an exaggeration. It's pretty bad. You have to go very slowly. It takes a long time to get in there, but they were going in and picking up garbage that people were leaving because they just throw it everywhere. There's no place. And so I think we should probably start looking in conjunction with the MNR, and we need the MNR to step up to the plate here, which isn't an easy task, I can assure you, at the best of times, never mind in COVID-19, and get them to they see it as a problem too, but they don't have any resources to do anything about it, so they're just leaving people. And I think they're waiting for a serious, some sort of a serious incident to occur there, fire or something of that sort, and then they're going to basically say, probably go back to the Premier and say, well, you know what, you should just close that and say this whole area is closed to people and they can't go in there. Which would be difficult to enforce. So I think the solution probably is to look at ways that we could make it a little more amenable to proper camping, and maybe try and raise the bar or raise the level of camping that is there, and not have it be exclusively. I would rather have it an area where people are doing legitimate wilderness camping and not simply trying to wreck their four-wheel drive and all-terrain vehicles and so on by running them up and down on the rocks and through the muskeg and whatever that's in there. So as I said, I don't have a specific proposal, but I think that's something that we should actually work on, and I am going to try to raise the issue with the MNR and see if there's any traction. The discussions that I had with them earlier this spring and with the OPP, because occasionally the OPP makes a foray in there and then tries to enforce some, liquor laws and drug laws and things, but they all basically said, well, we don't have the resources to do this, and if somehow or other we decide that we have a few surplus resources for a few hours, we might show up in there, but we don't want to do anything organized in terms of patrols or that. We'll just respond to occurrences as they occur, and it also, as you heard from Chief Whitman, it does create a risk for us. We don't have a huge fire department, and we don't have a lot of our bylaw officers would be stretched if they went in, if they were going in there, and it's mostly, once you get past Clear Lake, it's pretty much Crown land. So there's a question of whether we can even enforce it on it without getting a getting a Crown land permit of some kind from the government, which they could easily do, but and I'm not suggesting that this would be an opportunity for us to just spend a bunch of our ratepayers' money, but I think that if we can get the government to understand that it is a problem that's getting worse, and then maybe they can put some resources to it, and that would we could come up with some sort of a coordinated plan to just make it a little more orderly. That's anyway. I don't want to. That's really all I can say at this point. So we just wanted to make you aware of it, that it is an issue, and so it's.
Mr. Mayor, we have 15 minutes left.
Yeah, I know. All right, we're going to keep moving, and the next thing that I see. Sorry, correspondence. Item. Okay, enough, guys. As you can tell, I have a dog, and I can mute myself. You won't hear me either. Maybe that'd be a good thing. Councillor items. I'll give you a couple real quick, and then I'll ask if anybody has anything else. Just for your information, most of the new PA system is installed in the community center. We haven't been sort of shown how to use it yet or whatever, but I believe that will happen this week, and it's almost good to go. There's a little bit of tidying up an organization and stuff, and some training required, but we're pretty much done with that one. For your information, another sorry about that. Another item for information is that Thursday, I believe, is the telethon for on Moose FM for the West Perry Sound Health Center. Just to remind you, it's a day when they are taking pledges for their campaign to raise money for some equipment. So I just thought I would mention that to everybody, that remind you that that's happening. And even if you don't listen to Moose FM, if you want, if you go and look at their website or the hospital's website, you will see all the details of how that's happening. And I think that's probably all I have. Are there other announcements people need to make, or? No? I don't know if we have any public left then. Are there questions from the public? By the way, I've been encouraged that we should try and move questions from the public earlier up on the agenda so that people don't have to hang into the bitter end. But anyway, we'll talk about that another time.
Mr. Mayor, before we move into close, and before I forget, CAO Michelle, I don't have the number to call in for the closed session because I didn't pick anything up, and I'm down here. I didn't. So could you text me the numbers and the code to get in, or I won't be able to participate?
Yes, a text or an email. What do you prefer?
A text.
Okay, I will do that right now.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Good catch. All right, so can I get a motion to move into closed session, please? We have a very brief closed session. That's the good news. We'll get it done, and we'll be done by 10:30, or we should be.
I'll make the motion, or maybe the dog wants to make the motion. I can hear it.
Well, yeah, the dogs. I don't know what. I don't know what is bothering him. Joan went outside, and but anyway,
I'll second it.
I think that was Councillor McEwen or Councillor Woods.
Yes, thanks.
Leaving conference.
Judith Main.
Okay, I've got the motion with Councillor Woods or Councillor McEwen. So
leaving conference.
Bob Whitman.
We're going to adjourn the regular session at 10:17 p.m. Everybody's in agreement with that. Please hang up and dial back in with your other numbers. Our regular
leaving
session
conference.
is adjourned.
Councillor Gorham Matthews?
Leaving conference.
Councillor Lamb.
Leaving conference.
Ryan Woods.
Councillor McEwen?
Leaving conference.
Joe McEwen?
Leaving conference.
George Connery.